Chapter 1801. Of course, this didn't mean that the ocean labyrinth's strength was inferior to the heaven-blessed mansion. On the contrary, if one were to really compare the true ruling power of the sea region, the ocean labyrinth actually had more experts than the heaven-blessed dojo. After all, the area of the sea region was there for all to see. The 3 hall lords of the blessed dojo, who had married into the vast ocean labyrinth, were able to have such status. On one hand, it was because the blessed dojo was indeed strong enough and was a power that matched the vast ocean labyrinth. The other reason was that the vast ocean maze's sovereign emperors were all infatuated and henpecked. He treated his wife so well that no one could say anything about it. Thus, it was most appropriate for the imperial mermaids and mermaids to be dealt with by the heaven-blessed mansion. After exterminating the imperial mermaids and mermaids at the heaven-blessed mansion, not only did the vast ocean labyrinth not say anything, it even expressed its apologies to the blessed mansion. If Shueqing's 3 aunts knew that Shueqing had almost died in the hands of the imperial mermaids and mermaids, even in the ocean labyrinth, he would have to deal with the imperial mermaids and mermaids who were puppets by himself. Otherwise, how could the 3 sovereign emperors in the vast ocean labyrinth bear it if Shueqing's 3 aunts returned to their parents' home? However, it was clear that Ziqing did not intend to take things to such an extent. Lan Lian's eyes lit up when she heard Ziqing's words. He said hurriedly, "Sister Ziqing, Baifeng doesn't understand anything. Leave this matter to me." After that, Lan Lian took out her phone excitedly. Baifeng could not help but roll her eyes at Lan Lian's words. "Wretched girl, even now, you still don't forget to insult me." This was the first time Lin Yuan had heard of the vast ocean maze. He still did not know much about the sea species faction. Ziqing did not see Lin Yuan in his mermaid state. If Ziqing had seen it, she would have thought to herself, he did not need to understand what kind of faction the vast ocean maze was. When the ocean maze saw him in his mermaid state, it would definitely take the initiative to contact him. After everything was settled, Lin Yuan returned to his room. Before entering the spirit lock spatial zone, he planned to check on the willpower rune that he had just comprehended that was related to the soul. After returning to his room, Lin Yuan circulated his spiritual energy and summoned the willpower rune that was dancing in his soul. The milky white translucent willpower rune was constantly collapsing and reforming. Lin Yuan sensed a willpower called soul gathering from it. The appearance of this willpower rune surprised Lin Yuan. This was because he had comprehended 2 willpower runes after he had formed a contract with the thought soul whale and used it to absorb souls. These 2 willpower runes were very similar, but their essence was completely different. It was the willpower rune that he had comprehended through absorbing the remnant soul through the thought soul whale. It referred to the absorption of the soul, not the reorganization of the soul. Back then, the psychic whale had used that willpower rune to successfully evolve into a fantasy breed. He had obtained the exclusive skill soul remembrance. This allowed the soul whale to collect and fuse dead souls. When the dead soul reached a certain degree of completeness, it would become a soul remembrance imprint. It attached itself to a life form of the same species and increased its ability to comprehend. It made it easier for life forms of the same species to comprehend the same laws. Lin Yuan's new soul-related willpower rune was more suitable for the thought soul whale. However, Lin Yuan did not regret letting the thought soul whale fuse with a willpower rune related to the soul. Lin Yuan really liked the psychic soul whale's exclusive skill after becoming a fantasy breed, Endow of Soul Remembrance. This exclusive skill, Endow of Soul Remembrance, could not only assist Lin Yuan himself, it could also help Lin Yuan manage his faction. In the team battle, Lin Yuan had displayed such powerful strength as a B-rank spirit chi professional. It could not be separated from Lin Yuan's extreme nurturing of Fays. This was the first time Lin Yuan had summoned genius to battle. Back then, genius had used its full strength to suppress Lu O, who had fused with Great Devil. The subsequent elemental attacks and physical attacks were all powerful. This was all thanks to Genius Cat's cluster. The strength of Cat's cluster came from those feline Fays in the swamp world and the spirit cat paradise. If Lin Yuan wanted to increase genius strength, he had to nurture these feline Fays. Lin Yuan had the 100 Questions Beast Legion. He also had the Class 5 Creation Master D Wanmi. He didn't lack Creation Master resources anymore. However, Creation Master resources could upgrade these feline Fays to Diamond X/Legend. However, they could not help these feline Fays comprehend the willpower rune and comprehend the laws. This made it so that after reaching Diamond X/Legend, if these feline Fays wanted to upgrade again, they would have to spend a lot of effort. It would become extremely difficult. But now, with the Remembrance Soul Whale's exclusive skill, Soul Remembrance, these feline Fays in the Spirit Cat Paradise wanted to comprehend the willpower rune and comprehend the laws. It would be much easier. Lin Yuan and Genius were helping each other out. Genius might be powerful, but if Lin Yuan was not Genius Contractor and was someone else, that person would definitely not be able to nurture Genius to such an extent. In order to increase Genius strength, he had to use the best method to nurture a large number of feline Fays. Right now, there were 3,472 feline Fays in the Spirit Cat Paradise. However, these feline Fays were far from the limit that Genius could contract. Given Genius' current spiritual energy, it would be able to contract at least 7,000 feline Fays through its Lord of Myriad Cats ability. Right now, it had contracted over 3,000 feline Fays because before the Radiance 100 sequence selection, Lin Yuan was not able to obtain so many high-quality feline Fays in one go. Each of the feline Fays had been enhanced to Diamond X/Legend using the best method. In fact, it did not improve Genius much. It could be said that using the Cat's cluster to enhance Genius strength was an extremely low price-performance ratio. Even Class 5 Creation Masters might not be willing to spend so many resources to nurture Fays. Only Lin Yuan had the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone and a special physique. Only then could he nurture Genius. Not only Genius, but Red Thorn's Mouth of Relinquish was also a bottomless pit that needed to constantly devour resources. Chimey needed a large number of strange flames to temper the sun in its body. Even the source sand, which was easier to nurture, needed to grind about 20 Earth-type Heavenly Maiden-grade elemental pearls every day. It used the pure Earth-type elemental energy in the Earth-type elemental pearls to nurture the guard sand. Lin Yuan himself was a bottomless pit for resources. It was the same for Sky City. The Remembrance Soul Whale's exclusive skill, Soul Remembrance, saved Lin Yuan a lot of trouble. In Lin Yuan's opinion, this exclusive skill was even more precious than some sacred source life forms. Right now, Lin Yuan did not have a suitable Fey to use for this Soul Gather Willpower rune. Lin Yuan did not have any plans to nurture a Fey for this willpower rune. 7,017K. Chapter 1802. Lin Yuan planned to store this willpower rune, first, as he would have a use for it in the future. After checking his newly obtained willpower rune, he entered the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone. The first thing Lin Yuan did after entering the Spirit Lock Spatial Zone was to take the emerald green dimensional gem. Lin Yuan looked at the Morbius Trench in his mind. Morbius, you previously said that this dimensional gem can complete you. I wonder how I should use this dimensional gem. Hearing this, Morbius could not suppress the anticipation in its voice. This stone shouldn't be called a dimensional gem. I can't remember what it's called. It's just that this gem can make me feel that this is a part of what I need. Partner, place this gem in the groove of my body. My main body will merge with it, and I will fall into a deep slumber. When I wake up, I should be able to find out what this gem is. Apart from being able to unlock Spirit Lock's Fey ability, there might be other surprises. When Lin Yuan heard that Morbius was going to sleep again, his heart tightened. He was not afraid that he would encounter some problems after Morbius fell asleep. He liked to communicate with Morbius in his mind. Morbius was Lin Yuan's companion Fey, and they were interdependent. He could tell Morbius many things that he could not say to Chu Ci without reservation. Right now, if Morbius was asleep, judging from the length of Morbius's slumber, it was impossible for Morbius to survive. He felt that it would probably take a long time before he could communicate with Morbius again. However, it was a good thing for Morbius to mend itself. Lin Yuan was also very happy. Lin Yuan could feel the anticipation in Morbius' heart. Any life form, not just Fays, would look forward to their own improvement. It was the same for Morbius. Since Lin Yuan could perceive Morbius' thoughts, Morbius could also clearly perceive Lin Yuan's thoughts. Upon sensing Lin Yuan's intentions, Morbius' voice softened, for no reason. "Buddy, I only need to sleep for 8 hours. I will be able to complete the fusion with this emerald gem. It won't take too long. Tonight, I will be able to meet you in a completely new manner. In these 8 hours, think carefully about which phase ability to be unlocked." After hearing Morbius' words, he knew that Morbius would only need to sleep for 8 hours before waking up. A bright smile immediately appeared on Lin Yuan's face. As for which Spirit Lock Fey to unseal, Lin Yuan had already thought of it beforehand. Lin Yuan planned to unseal the Jasmine Lily first. There were 2 reasons why Lin Yuan had chosen to unseal the Jasmine Lily. On one hand, it was because Little Black and Zixiao were both assistants. The Soul Remembrance Whale was a functional type Fey. Compared to support, healing was more important. This team battle had allowed him to basically understand who his teammates would be after he became a Radiance envoy. It could be said that none of Lin Yuan's batch of youths were pure, healing-type spirit chi professionals. In the process of forming a team, Lin Yuan had to shoulder the responsibility of healing the team. Little Hei's spirit recovery ability collided with Gao Feng's ability. Purple Firmament's ability collided with Gu Lang's ability. Lin Yuan had never fought against Gu Lang and had never had the chance to fight alongside him. However, during the return from Faraway Manor's meeting before the Radiance 100 sequence selection, everyone understood each other's phase. Gu Lang's control ability was paired with the Sacred Source life form. It could be said that he could control the entire battlefield in multiple dimensions. As a functional type Fey, the Soul Remembrance Whale was not within Lin Yuan's consideration. Thus, the Jasmine Lily was Lin Yuan's best choice. On the other hand, the Jasmine Lily's exclusive skill, Severed Connection, was combined with the Mother of Bloodbath's Sacred Source life form, the Myriad Herb Spring. Together with the Soul Remembrance Whale's ability, it could bring living beings back from the dead and reconstruct their bodies. Lin Yuan wanted to see if the Jasmine Lily's unsealing ability could improve the Myriad Herb Spring's abilities to a greater extent. Lin Yuan said to Morbius with determination, "I choose the Jasmine Lily." Hearing this, Morbius said with relief, "Partner, this is the wisest choice." Morbius and Lin Yuan conversed for a while before Lin Yuan placed the emerald gem into the groove of the Morbius bracelet. Morbius' copper-colored body suddenly blossomed with resplendent copper-colored light. The emerald gem also lit up with a faint green glow. The copper glow enveloped the green glow. Lin Yuan realized that after the copper glow completely enveloped the green glow, the emerald gem invaded the Morbius bracelet. It formed a hole with the Morbius bracelet. Lin Yuan waited for Morbius to wake up 8 hours later. It was not just because Lin Yuan was looking forward to the unsealing of the jasmine lily. At the same time, Lin Yuan was also looking forward to Morbius' new enhancements after fusing with the gem. At the same time, Lin Yuan was also looking forward to the new enhancements that Morbius would obtain after fusing with the gem. It could be said that every enhancement of Morbius was of great help to Lin Yuan. Just like the elemental well that had appeared in the Spirit Lock spatial zone not long ago. At the bottom of the well, there was already a thin layer of well water. It was like the accumulated water on the roadside after a rain. There was still too little well water in the elemental well. If Lin Yuan wanted to use it in large quantities, he would need to wait for a period of time. Lin Yuan had given Na to save Luo. He kept the 3 sacred source life forms that were used as compensation. These 3 uncontracted sacred source life forms were like a blind box to Lin Yuan. Since Lin Yuan knew how sacred source life forms were formed, he preferred to obtain sacred source life forms from dimensional worlds that were clear about their origins. Lin Yuan could vaguely guess the abilities of these sacred source life forms that he could confirm their origins. Therefore, Lin Yuan planned to use these 3 sacred source life forms as Sky City's reserve resources as a reward for his subordinates who had contributed to Sky City. The phaseless beast cub's roars kept ringing in Lin Yuan's soul. Lin Yuan did not have any good ideas for dealing with this suzerain/myth phaseless beast. The phaseless beast burrowed into his soul, and Morbius used its power of origin to seal his soul. It cut off the connection between Luo and the phaseless beast. However, as long as Lin Yuan released the phaseless beast would be able to sense it, no matter how far away they were. Luo would be able to sense the phaseless beast. To put it bluntly, Lin Yuan could only choose to keep the phaseless beast in his soul. Either he killed this phaseless beast that brought disaster to the world. However, he was unable to completely control this phaseless beast that brought calamity to the world. One had to know that Lin Yuan coveted this phaseless beast that brought calamity to the world. Chapter 1803. The phaseless beast that Lin Yuan had snatched from Luo was the same as Genius Chimey. It used its own bloodline to create a species Fae. It was a unique existence in the world. This phaseless beast cub was produced by the phaseless beast mother body. Lin Yuan had never seen the mother before, so he did not know what abilities it had. However, the mother's ability, Nation Luck Steel, and its exclusive skill, Disaster Luck, they were all abilities that Lin Yuan had never seen in other life forms. It could extract the luck of the land and steal it for its own use to increase the effects of its abilities. This allowed the phaseless beast to have the ability to fight across a major realm. Nation Luck Steel required lifespan, which was a shortcoming of the phaseless beast. If there was a way to increase the lifespan of the phaseless beast, it could be offset by its exclusive skill, Count Lifespan. The phaseless beast could definitely be called a great killing weapon. As for the exclusive skill, Phaseless Face, it allowed the phaseless beast to be abnormally flexible in combat. During a team battle, the phaseless beast could make up for the team's shortcomings according to the team's configuration. During the battle, Luo had made this phaseless beast, which brought calamity to the world, change into his appearance. Before he could launch an attack, he stared at Lin Yuan and was in a stalemate with him. In the end, the phaseless beast was imprisoned in Lin Yuan's soul. There was no effect at all. If Luo had not made the phaseless beast target him, he would not have been able to control it. Instead, he would have used the incantations, curse words, and curse heart to control it. It would have undoubtedly put a lot of pressure on the Radiance's side. The suzerain/myth phaseless beast grade was higher than all of Lin Yuan, Zhongzhe, and Gao Feng's phase. Therefore, there was no need to worry about control. Lu Yifun's phase and sacred source life forms mostly had physical and elemental defenses. They were lacking in defense against the spirit, soul, and heart. This made it very difficult to restrain and target the phaseless beast when it was controlled. In addition, the Radiance's strategy was to kill Yanling first and remove the link between the three sacred source life forms. If Lu O had not instructed the phaseless beast to attack Lin Yuan, but had allowed it to replicate her into Yanling after Yanling was killed, the phaseless beast would not have been able to kill Lin Yuan. It would be able to support the three sacred source life forms working together again. It would have been fine if Lin Yuan had not obtained this phaseless beast. Now that he had obtained the phaseless beast, he could only look on helplessly. It was truly infuriating. Upon hearing the phaseless beast's incessant hooting in his soul, Lin Yuan prepared to tease this phaseless beast. However, just as Lin Yuan was preparing to tease this phaseless beast that was wreaking havoc, the phone suddenly rang. Lin Yuan picked up his cell phone and realized that the call was from the Moon Empress. Lin Yuan hurriedly picked it up. Lin Yuan heard the Moon Empress say in a rather serious tone, "Little Yuan, come to the Radiant Moon Palace at 9 p.m. With that, the Moon Empress hung up the phone. He immediately knew that his master, the Moon Empress, had something to look for him, and it should be a rather important matter. Otherwise, according to the agreement between him and the Moon Empress, he should be going to the Radiant Moon Palace tomorrow. For a moment, Lin Yuan could not figure out why the Moon Empress would suddenly look for him. There was still some time before 9 p.m., so Lin Yuan did not think too much about it. He continued to study the phaseless beast that was wreaking havoc. This phaseless beast was not a cat species fae. Otherwise, when Lin Yuan was smart enough to suppress this phaseless beast cub, he would be able to use the Lord of Cats' ability to control this phaseless beast cub. Through the skill Lord of 10,000 Cats, he could control this phaseless beast cub. After studying for 2 hours, Lin Yuan could not come up with any good ideas. After studying for 2 hours, Lin Yuan, who could not come up with any good ideas, secretly probed. If it really did not work, he could only kill this phaseless beast cub. He would then hand over this phaseless beast cub to the 100 Questions Beast Legion. He wanted the 100 Questions Beast Legion to study the situation of this phaseless beast that brought disaster to the world. Perhaps they would be able to find the method to nurture this phaseless beast. Of course, Lin Yuan knew that it was too difficult to pry out the secret of this phaseless beast. Just like when the flower branch rat and the longevity rat were placed together. No one would think that the longevity rat was nurtured from the flower branch rat. Genius had transformed from a 100 Questions beast to a heaven-knowing destiny beast. Genius strength was at Diamond X/Fantasy V. The 100 Questions beasts in the 100 Questions Beast Legion were also at Diamond X. However, none of the 100 Questions beasts had transformed into heaven-knowing destiny beasts during the process of increasing their strength. Not to mention heaven-knowing destiny beasts. Not even one had transformed into the interconnected life beast. Lin Yuan could not help but guess that only the first one had taken a special path. Only a fae with its own species could be so extraordinary. Currently, Morbius was in a deep slumber. Lin Yuan planned to wait for Morbius to wake up 8 hours later and have a good talk with it. He wanted to see if Morbius had any good ideas. There was still a while before the appointment with the Moon Empress. Lin Yuan started to organize the spoils of war that he had obtained from the battle with the Freedom Federation's envoys. After organizing everything, Lin Yuan planned to head to the Radiant Moon Palace to see why his master, the Moon Empress, was looking for him. Originally, Lin Yuan should have thrown these sacred source life forms to Di Wanmi, especially Qian Yu's 8-star sacred source life form, Hidden Sea Muse. During the battle with Han Qi, Lin Yuan had witnessed the power of offensive artifacts. Therefore, Lin Yuan especially wanted to create an artifact for himself. The artifact created by the hidden sea muse was only suitable for Lin Yuan in his mermaid state. Regardless of whether Lin Yuan was in his normal state or in his mermaid state, he was still Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan felt that he would probably have to equip 2 sets of artifacts in the future. It was suitable for him to use in different states. It seemed that Di Wanmi would be used by Lin Yuan to create artifacts from now on. There were still 10 minutes before 9 o'clock. Lin Yuan used the ethereal jellyfish's ability node to teleport and appeared in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace. However, the moment Lin Yuan appeared in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace, his eyes immediately widened. This was because Lin Yuan realized that there was a person beside the exquisite jade table in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace. Apart from his master, the Moon Empress, there was also a person that Lin Yuan had a deep impression of. This person was the pity god. Under normal circumstances, Lin Yuan's first impression of the pity god should be the Freedom Federation's majesty. However, the moment Lin Yuan transformed into a mermaid, he could clearly sense the mermaid bloodline in the pity god's body. 7017K. Chapter 1804. The mermaid bloodline in Goddess Lian's body was much stronger than Qian Yu's mermaid bloodline after fusing with an 8-star sacred source life form. But compared to Lin Yuan's mermaid bloodline, there was still a huge gap. The mermaid bloodline was extremely exclusive. Lin Yuan, who was in his mermaid state, looked down on Qian Yu's mermaid bloodline. Similarly, he looked down on Goddess Lian's mermaid bloodline, especially after the Blue Lotus's blessing caused the mermaid bloodline in his body to transform. This rejection of Goddess Lian's mermaid bloodline, or rather, contempt, became stronger and stronger, even if Lin Yuan did not enter his mermaid state. Due to the influence of the bloodline in his body, Lin Yuan actually subconsciously looked down on the pity god, who could crush him with a single finger. Goddess Lian would appear in the Radiant Moon Palace's inner palace, and his master would be there as well. This meant that Goddess Lian was a guest. Logically speaking, Lin Yuan should have greeted Goddess Lian after greeting the Moon Empress. However, the pride of the merfolk bloodline in his body made him subconsciously not do so. It was just like how a flood dragon looked down on a green insect. As soon as Lin Yuan arrived, the little white rabbit in the Moon Empress' arms bounced into Lin Yuan's arms. Lin Yuan knew that the little white rabbit that his master usually carried was called Zishi. Lin Yuan tried to touch Zishi, but previously, Zishi would immediately jump away every time Lin Yuan stretched out his hand, as if she despised him. But this time, why had Zishi taken the initiative to jump into his arms? Lin Yuan thought for a while, and immediately understood. Zishi, who was in his arms, still looked reluctant as she squirmed around in his arms. She hugged Radish tightly, as if afraid that Lin Yuan would snatch Radish away. At the same time, Lin Yuan's ears perked up, obviously entering a state of alertness. Presumably, because Goddess Lian was present, his master had asked Zishi to protect him. This meant that the Moon Empress did not trust Goddess Lian. Lin Yuan did not waste his brain to think about what was going on. His master had invited him to the Radiant Moon Palace, and it must have something to do with Goddess Lian. Lin Yuan only needed to wait for the Moon Empress to mention it. The moment Lin Yuan appeared, the Goddess of Mercy appeared. The close contact with Lin Yuan immediately made the merfolk bloodline in Lian Shen's body restless. Lian Shen forcefully circulated the spiritual energy in her body to suppress the restlessness of her mermaid bloodline. Only then could he barely maintain his calm on the surface. He did not want to lose his composure in front of the Moon Empress. If he lost his composure in front of the Moon Empress, the merfolk bloodline aura in his body would go out of control. the Moon Empress would immediately guess the reason why she wanted to get in touch with Lin Yuan. This was contrary to Goddess Lian's plan. Goddess Compassion would be willing to cooperate with Radiance and betray the Freedom Federation. It was all for a chance to improve further. Once the Moon Empress knew of his objective, it would be the same as the Moon Empress grabbing onto his weakness. This was a situation that the Goddess of Mercy would never allow to happen. After Lin Yuan walked to the Moon Empress' side, the Moon Empress released her aura and enveloped Lin Yuan. He turned to Lian Shun and said, "My disciple is already standing in front of you. If there's anything you want to say to my disciple, say it quickly." Through the way Lin Yuan looked at the Moon Empress, Lian Shun knew that Lin Yuan trusted the Moon Empress wholeheartedly. In front of the Moon Empress, he was in a defenseless state. The Goddess of Mercy had never been defenseless against anyone. In the Goddess of Mercy's view, being defenseless was the deepest feeling. Therefore, the Goddess of Mercy's heart couldn't help but surge with jealousy toward the Moon Empress. The Goddess of Mercy also hoped that Lin Yuan would also enter such a state towards her. In this way, would it still be far for her to obtain Lin Yuan's love? The mermaid bloodline in Lin Yuan's body had just transformed into the mermaid imperial bloodline. It still needed some time to stabilize. Therefore, the Goddess of Mercy's visit this time was mainly to let Lin Yuan know about her, and to have a deep impression of herself. Then, she could also take advantage of this opportunity to express her goodwill to Lin Yuan. The Goddess of Mercy's eyes looked at Lin Yuan. She wanted to express her goodwill to Lin Yuan. However, when she saw Lin Yuan's exquisite facial features and the bloodline aura hidden in his body, the Goddess of Mercy's golden red fishtail trembled unconsciously. This made the Goddess of Mercy, who had been enjoying the benefits of the mermaid bloodline and causing the extinction of the mermaid race, curse in her heart for the first time. The disappointment of the bloodline in her body. Lin Yuan was now of the mermaid imperial family's bloodline. In the future, the mermaid imperial bloodline in Lin Yuan's body would continue to strengthen and eventually reach the peak of the imperial bloodline. If she couldn't obtain Lin Yuan's love before that, her bloodline would improve further. She was afraid that she wouldn't have the courage to sit face to face with Lin Yuan. Even if they sat face to face, even if she tried her best to suppress it, it was impossible to be like this without revealing flaws. This made the Goddess of Mercy immediately realize that Lin Yuan was both her help and her hindrance. Even with Lin Yuan's strength, it would be impossible for him to catch up with her for a long time. However, if Lin Yuan released the power of his bloodline in front of her and suppressed the mermaid bloodline in her body, then, when facing an eternal realm fae, it was very likely that she would be at a disadvantage. Understanding this, the Goddess of Mercy looked at Lin Yuan with a strange gaze, with a bit of vigilance and scrutiny. But soon, a trace of guilt uncontrollably welled up in the depths of the Goddess of Mercy's heart. It was as if her vigilance and scrutiny of Lin Yuan was a sin in itself. At that moment, for the first time, the Goddess of Mercy had the urge to flee. Taking a deep breath, the Goddess of Mercy forced herself to calm down and said, "I am a Pinnacle Class 5 Creation Master. Qian Yu's sacred source life form is very compatible with you, so I can still stay in the Radiance Union for a while. During this time, why don't I help you refine the body of the hidden sea muse into a treasure?" The Goddess of Mercy was a person who was afraid of trouble. When the Freedom Federation's Majesty asked the Goddess of Mercy to help refine a treasure, she would rarely agree, even if the price was high. The Goddess of Mercy said all this to gain Lin Yuan's favor. But the Goddess of Mercy did not notice. Because of the bloodline, the Goddess of Mercy's words to Lin Yuan were unusually gentle. This gentle feeling was like the whispering of a secret admirer to an admirer. Lin Yuan's face immediately revealed a surprised expression. He did not understand why the goddess of mercy would say such a thing to him. Why would the goddess of mercy refine a treasure for him out of nowhere? The goddess of mercy was waiting for Lin Yuan's response, but before she could, she heard the Moon Empress snort. This Empress is a Class 6 creation master. This Empress disciple's sacred source life form will definitely be personally forged by this Empress. 7017K, Chapter 1805. Upon hearing the Moon Empress tone, Zishi, who was in Lin Yuan's arms, involuntarily shrank back, because Zishi could feel the anger in the Moon Empress heart that could not be suppressed any longer. Our pinnacle Class 5 creation masters, very impressive, even more awesome than a Class 6 creation master like me. I can purify the eternal heart, but can you? You're speaking as if no one else knows how to refine artifacts other than you. You want to refine a treasure for my disciple? You're not worthy. In fact, the reason why the Moon Empress was so angry wasn't just because of what Lien deity had said. Instead, the pity goddess had publicly tried to rope Lin Yuan in. However, Lin Yuan was his caregiver. The Moon Empress was able to get along well with the compassionate goddess now because she had taken the initiative to seek cooperation, allowing her to become the Republic of Radiance's ally. However, it didn't mean that the Moon Empress' dissatisfaction with Goddess Lien had subsided. To put it simply, Goddess Lien's behavior right now was a show of concern for the younger generation. It was a gesture of goodwill towards Hui Yao. In other words, this was openly snatching disciples. Your loved one has just died, and you want to use the sacred source life form of your loved one to refine into a treasure to give to the person who killed your loved one? How vicious! What a heartless heart! The Moon Empress had always known that the pity goddess was selfish and heartless. However, he did not expect the goddess of mercy to be so heartless. This also allowed the Moon Empress to understand why the goddess of mercy of the Freedom Federation would sacrifice the interests of the Freedom Federation to fulfill her own selfish desires. The Moon Empress was gnashing her teeth in anger at the Lien deity, but she didn't know that the Lien deity would get even angrier after hearing her words. So, what if he was a Class 6 creation master? As long as my strength can improve further, I will soon become a Class 6 creation master. Even if his strength didn't increase, it wasn't impossible for him to become a Class 6 creation master within a few years. A Class 6 creation master's rigid requirement for the soul spirit was to ascend the path to heaven. Goddess Lien, who had awakened her birth providence, had reached the required level of soul power. Do you think it's easy to think of a way to express goodwill to Lin Yuan? I thought for a long time before I came up with this idea. In Lien Shun's opinion, the Moon Empress had ruined her chance to express her goodwill to Lin Yuan. At the same time, she recalled Lin Yuan's gaze toward the Moon Empress. It was respectful, gentle, and filled with trust and admiration. The jealousy in Lien Shun's heart immediately surged. Jealousy filled the goddess of mercy's mind, and she almost resonated with the archdevil that she had contracted with. If the pitiful goddess were to fuse with the great devil in the radiant moon palace, it would be the same as initiating a war with the Moon Empress. At that time, Lin Yuan would have a bad impression of him. Then why would I cooperate with Hui Yao? Goddess Lien knew very well that once hatred was born, it would be difficult to feel love again. No matter what, the pitiful goddess could not contradict the Moon Empress in front of Lin Yuan. This caused Lien Shun to be so angry that her eyes were red, but she behaved like a little wife and lowered her head in front of the evil mother-in-law, the Moon Empress. The goddess of mercy's fists were clenched tightly together by now. Lien Shun, who had never done anything with a goal, suddenly had a goal in her heart. This goal was to make Lin Yuan trust her more than the Moon Empress within 5 years. At that time, in front of Lin Yuan, even if he and the Moon Empress quarreled or even fought, Lin Yuan would only help him. Lien Shen, who had set this goal, did not realize that she had changed her initial plan for Lin Yuan. Although Lin Yuan's mermaid royal bloodline made it difficult for goddess Lien herself to make a move on him, Lin Yuan's bloodline was different. But the Mercy God had ways to kill Lin Yuan. Originally, the Mercy God thought that once she obtained Lin Yuan's love, her strength would improve further. In that case, Lin Yuan would no longer be someone that he needed to curry favor with. On the contrary, Lin Yuan's mermaid royal bloodline was an excellent tonic for her. It would allow her mermaid bloodline to be perfected and obtain more possibilities. After Qian Yu's death, the Mercy God could easily say that she would take Qian Yu's sacred source life form to forge artifacts for Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was also the person who killed Qian Yu. This was enough to show how cold-blooded the Mercy God was. The Mercy God did not like to be threatened by anything. While Lin Yuan could become the Mercy God, he himself was a threat to the Mercy God. The pitiful Mercy God had neglected the influence of her bloodline on her heart. At that moment, Lin Yuan was like soft honey. While the Mercy God coveted him, she wanted to protect him from the bottom of her heart. The Mercy God had not been facing Lin Yuan for long. She had already been affected by the bloodline, subtly weakening the killing intent in her heart. Instead, she hoped that she could show off after obtaining Lin Yuan's love. The Mercy God was still forcibly suppressing the bloodline energy in her body, maintaining a calm expression. However, she had forgotten that Lin Yuan, who possessed the mermaid royal bloodline, could clearly feel the condition of his bloodline. The mermaid race valued bloodline even more than the fairy race, which was a source-type life form. High-grade mermaids could, to a certain extent, decide the life and death of low-grade mermaids through their bloodline. As for the fairy with a high-grade bloodline, it was more of a deterrent to the fairy with a low-grade bloodline. There was an essential difference between the two. The mermaid royal bloodline was an extremely unfamiliar territory to the Mercy God. The Mercy God did not know the ability of the mermaid royal bloodline. At that moment, Lin Yuan could clearly feel the flow of the bloodline power in the Mercy God's body. At that moment, the Mercy God was using her own power to suppress the mermaid royal bloodline. She gathered all the mermaid royal bloodline into her heart. The atrium and ventricles of the heart were confined. Under normal circumstances, the Mercy God did not have to do this. When the Mercy God first came in, she was facing her master, the Moon Empress. Lin Yuan did not find that the Mercy God was suppressing her bloodline. The Mercy God had such a behavior after he appeared. Thinking of the Mercy God's goodwill to him, Lin Yuan suddenly understood many things that he had been puzzled about before. Lin Yuan was of the mermaid royal bloodline. However, he knew very little about the mermaid race. The Azure Federation should have the most information about the mermaid race. It just so happened that Lin was still in the Radiance Federation and would leave in a week. Lin Yuan planned to learn about the mermaid race within this week. Through Lin, he would learn about the mermaid race. Lin would certainly not carry this information with her. All the information about the Azure Federation was not confidential to Lin, and she could investigate it. However, she would never easily disclose it to other people in the Federation. When Lin returned to the Azure Federation, she checked the relevant information. When the Celestial Parliament opened next time, Lin could tell him the relevant information about the mermaid race through the Celestial Parliament. Lin Yuan could now be sure that the Mercy God was so flattering to him. It was because of the bloodline. He did not know what the Mercy God wanted from him. If she had no desires, there was no need for the Mercy God to deliberately show goodwill to him face to face. 7017K. Chapter 1806. He had to know the purpose of the compassionate goddess's goodwill. Only then would he know how to get in touch with the compassionate goddess. Lin Yuan, who had lived 2 lifetimes, was very mature in his views. Lin Yuan did not reject the pity god's initiative to express goodwill. Lin Yuan was well aware of the pity god's use. Be it his Sky City or the Radiance Federation, Lien Xindu would definitely be a great help. Just as Lin Yuan was pondering, the goddess of mercy waved her palm at the table. Immediately, 7 or 8 aqua blue shells appeared on the table. The shell was covered with a pearl-like luster. He used Morbius True Data to investigate these shells. At first glance, Lin Yuan found that these shells were not living phase. Instead, he ground the water elemental, heavenly maiden level elemental pearls into powder and added the shell fragments of the spirit-containing clam, a container made by combining them in a special way, nourished by the pure water element and the spirit energy contained in the spirit-containing sea clam. It was very suitable for storing precious water element spirit materials. These water blue shells were not opened, so Lin Yuan did not know what was inside. However, through the mermaid imperial bloodline in his body, he could sense that the things in these shells were related to mermaids, because inside these shells there was the aura of the mermaid bloodline. Lien Shen said to the Moon Empress after taking out the shells. 8-star sacred source life form, submerged sea muse's bones, scales, and mermaid heart as the main ingredients. The most suitable auxiliary materials, in addition to water attribute spiritual materials, it is best to have a certain relationship with the mermaid bloodline. These are the water attribute spiritual materials I collected that contain the mermaid bloodline. Moon Empress, since you said that you want to refine, for Lin Yuan, then I will give you all the spiritual ingredients that I originally prepared for Lin Yuan. You decide if you want to use it or not. I guess you can't take out many spiritual materials with mermaid bloodline. When Goddess Lien spoke, she looked straight at the Moon Empress. However, Lien Shun was no longer thinking about how to compete with the Moon Empress. Instead, it was how to deepen Lin Yuan's impression of him and make him remember him. Perhaps through the Moon Empress' forcefulness, she could leave a gentle label in Lin Yuan's heart. Male creatures tend to prefer gentle companions. Conquering Lin Yuan was definitely not something that could be done in a day or 2. There's still a long way to go. We'll see in the Moon Empress. What Goddess Lien said was not a lie. No matter how precious the water attribute spiritual materials were, the Moon Empress could take them out. However, the Moon Empress could at most take out 1 or 2 water attribute spiritual ingredients with mermaid bloodlines. On the one hand, it was because the water attribute spiritual materials containing the mermaid bloodline could not be used in the preparation of high-star spiritual liquid. The Moon Empress had never taken the initiative to look for him. Secondly, the Iron Prison's royal robe was made of the scales of some creatures with mermaid bloodlines. Iron Prison was very fond of those blue mermaid scales. In order to add more mermaid elements to the royal robe, Iron Prison had already plundered a wave of water attribute spirit materials with mermaid bloodlines from the other 12 lords. No matter how much the Moon Empress doted on Lin Yuan and thought for his sake, the Moon Empress had to be careful. It wouldn't be nice to tear apart Iron Hell's robe. Moreover, Goddess Lien had been searching for mermaids all over the world all these years. Because of Goddess Lien, the mermaid race of the origin world had basically been exterminated. As a result, the Ocean Labyrinth was enraged and launched a crusade against Goddess Lien. In the end, for some unknown reason, Goddess Lien paid a great price to reconcile with the Ocean Labyrinth. It could be said that all the water attribute spiritual materials with mermaid bloodlines in the world were basically with Goddess Lien, in a situation where she did not have the ability to take them out. No matter how much the Moon Empress wanted Goddess Lien to take the items, and get out of the radiant moon palace. For Lin Yuan's sake, the Moon Empress had no choice but to accept the mermaid bloodline water attribute spiritual materials that Goddess Lien had taken out. The Moon Empress opened the shells one by one to check the quality of the spiritual materials. She discovered that these water attribute spiritual materials with mermaid bloodlines had been carefully selected by Goddess Lien. They were extremely suitable to be used with the Hidden Sea Maids, an 8-star sacred source life form, to create artifacts. Moreover, the quality of these spiritual materials was extremely high. Many of them even came from sacred source life forms. If these spiritual materials were used with the bodies and bones of the Hidden Sea Maids, the artifact could be guaranteed to not drop stars during the artifact creation process. Starfall was a very common phenomenon in the manufacturing process of precious treasures. The body of a 3-star sacred source life form was refined by a Class 5 creation master. The probability of refining a 1-star artifact was very high. The artifact that Chef Supreme had given Lin Yuan, which was made from the skin and stomach of the treasure cave golden cicada, had dropped by 2 stars. Even though the Moon Empress was now a Class 6 creation master, without the mermaid bloodline water attribute spiritual materials that the Goddess Lien had given her, the Moon Empress would have been able to gather the spiritual materials herself. No matter how diligent she was, she could only guarantee that the artifact she refined would reach the standard of a 7-star artifact. The higher the star of the sacred source life form's dead body, the easier it was to drop stars during the artifact refinement. This was common knowledge among Class 5 creation masters. However, with the things that the Goddess Lien had given her, the Moon Empress felt that she had a chance to strive to create an 8-star artifact for Lin Yuan during the refinement process. Judging from the materials that the Goddess Lien had taken out, the Moon Empress found that the Goddess Lien had no intention of hiding anything from Lin Yuan. At that moment, the Moon Empress was no longer angry. Instead, she carefully examined the Goddess Lien. The Moon Empress realized that the way the Goddess Lien looked at Lin Yuan did not seem to be treating him as a caretaker or a disciple. This kind of gaze was very similar to the way the Azure envoy, Yinlin, looked at Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress had heard rumors that Yinlin and Lin Yuan had ridden the same fey carriage. The Moon Empress did not ask about the relationship between Lin Yuan and Yinlin, but she paid attention to Yinlin. After Yinlin had proposed a competition with the Radiance's younger generation in the Freedom Federation's envoy group, Yinlin could be said to help Lin Yuan without hesitation. Yinlin's favorable impression of Lin Yuan seemed to be restrained. However, the Moon Empress felt that she was not the only one who could feel it. If the Goddess Lien paid attention to Yinlin, even if she did not know that Yinlin and Lin Yuan had ridden the same fey carriage, she would be able to catch a glimpse of it. However, compared to Yinlin, the Goddess Lien's expression seemed to have more ulterior motives and was also more obscure. The Moon Empress, who was aware of this, looked at the Goddess Lien with a strange gaze. The Moon Empress did not believe that the Goddess Lien had betrayed the Freedom Federation just to find a man. The Goddess Lien must have other motives. However, based on the Goddess Lien's current behavior, she would not take the initiative to hurt Lin Yuan. The compassionate goddess might even lend a hand when he was in danger. At that moment, the Moon Empress heard the Goddess Lien speak to Lin Yuan in a gentle tone. Chapter 1807. The pity god's words made Lin Yuan's body tense up instantly. Lu O's world calamity phaseless beast cub should have been imprisoned by you in some way, right? As Nana's signature fae, the world calamity phaseless beast is very powerful. Lin Yuan had always thought that he had imprisoned the world calamity phaseless beast cub in his soul and had done it quietly. It was fine if Lu O knew the situation. However, he did not expect the pity god to see through it. If the pity god wanted to take away the world calamity phaseless beast cub from his hands, Lin Yuan would definitely be unwilling. If the pity god wanted the world calamity phaseless beast cub from him to return it to Lu O and ease the relationship between him and Nana, it would be equivalent to increasing Lu O's strength. Lu O was not even 20 years old and already had such strength. In the future, she would be a suitable candidate for the Freedom Envoy. There would be no benefits for the Radiance Federation to increase the strength of such a person. Even if the pity god wanted to take away the world calamity phaseless beast cub, it was not to return it to Lu O, but for herself. Lin Yuan was also unwilling to give away what he had obtained for no reason. Lin Yuan killed the world calamity phaseless beast cub and handed it over to the 100 Questions Beast Legion. He would let the 100 Questions Beast Legion conduct analysis and experiments. He would definitely be able to obtain a significant harvest. Even if Lin Yuan could not use these harvests to nurture the world calamity phaseless beast cub again, it was better than having no harvest at all. When the pity god saw the change in Lin Yuan's eyes, she immediately knew that he had misunderstood. Lin Yuan did not know that she had already reached a deal with the Moon Empress and that old man. Therefore, he did not put himself on the same side. It was not easy for the pity god to explain such things. However, she could use her actions to express her position and sincerity to Lin Yuan. The pity god glanced at the Moon Empress and said, "Under normal circumstances, a spirit chi professional's contracted fey can't be taken away. However, there are exceptions to everything. There are some special source-type life forms that can parasitize the target and occupy the target's soul. Such source-type life forms allow spirit chi professionals to snatch each other's contracted phase." Upon hearing the pity god's words, Lin Yuan was shocked. He knew that the pity god was not lying. This was because he had obtained such source-type life forms before. At that time, he had used the demon heart to transform the golden lotus seedling and the sea burial lotus flower into demons. After the heart of the fairy fused with the fey object, the soul within the heart of the fairy would occupy the soul within the original fey object. He only needed to contract the heart of the demon in advance, and the fey whose soul was occupied by the heart of the demon would become his contracted life form. For example, the 12 cocooned demon embryos in Lu Jie's hands were fundamentally different from the fairy's heart's ability to parasitize souls. The cocoon demon embryo could not replace the soul. It was just an increase in spiritual intelligence. In essence, he still had to rely on the insect queen's control over the insect-type carcinoma phase. The compassion god's words gave him a new train of thought. However, he currently did not have any source-type items that could parasitize soul B-species phase. However, Goddess Lian would not have mentioned it for no reason. Now that she had brought it up, the Goddess of Mercy should have a solution. Lin Yuan looked at the Goddess of Mercy and waited for her to continue. When Zishi, who was in Lin Yuan's arms, heard the Goddess of Mercy's words, she subconsciously thought that the Moon Empress might be angry. The Goddess of Mercy's current behavior was suspicious of guiding Lin Yuan. Previously, whether it was the Mother of Bloodbath or Mystic Moon, the Moon Empress would immediately be dissatisfied when they guided Lin Yuan in front of her. Purple She understood very well that the Moon Empress was thinking that only she could teach her own disciple. However, the truth was not as Zishi had expected. At that moment, the Moon Empress looked at the Goddess of Mercy calmly. She did not seem to feel that there was anything wrong with the Goddess of Mercy's words. In fact, before the Moon Empress brought the Goddess of Mercy to see Lin Yuan, the Goddess of Mercy had already mentioned this matter to the Moon Empress. She had used this matter as a bargaining chip to communicate with Lin Yuan face-to-face. The Moon Empress did not have a source-type item that could parasitize soul beasts. Therefore, the Moon Empress was unable to give him any help in controlling the infant phaseless beast. Although the Moon Empress did not wish for anyone to teach Lin Yuan on her behalf. But for Lin Yuan's sake, she was unable to give him any practical help. If others could help Lin Yuan, the Moon Empress would be willing, even if the Moon Empress felt a little uncomfortable. As his master, the Moon Empress had long been in the process of thinking for Lin Yuan, constantly breaking her bottom line. Lin Yuan's strength was getting stronger, and he was on a path that the Moon Empress could not predict. In the future, Lin Yuan would only need more and more help. The goddess of mercy could always protect Lin Yuan from behind and let him fly as high as he wanted. However, she could not stop Lin Yuan from getting help because of her feelings. That would be too selfish of him. When the compassion god saw Lin Yuan's expression change, she immediately became happy and thought to herself, "That's right. If he helped Lin Yuan control the phaseless beast cub, Lin Yuan would probably have a good impression of him. Even if he still would not be close to her, at least he would not treat her as an enemy." The goddess of mercy waved her hand, and a pure black crystal appeared in her hand. Lin Yuan saw that although this crystal was abnormally black, it was as clear as crystal. Through the black crystal, he could see the scene behind it. Just as Lin Yuan was looking at the black crystal, Lin Yuan's eyes suddenly lit up. Lin Yuan only felt that there seemed to be a gaze inside the crystal that was meeting his own eyes. Lin Yuan heard the goddess of mercy say, "This black crystal is a special source-type item called the beast spirit soul. The soul of a beast spirit can parasitize the soul of an infant world calamity beast, devouring its soul and occupying its body. However, the strength of the infant phaseless beast has already reached the suzerain/myth I realm. The beast spirit's soul wants to devour the infant world calamity beast soul and occupy its body. I must ensure that my soul reaches the same level as the infant phaseless beast. Even if I can rely on some auxiliary methods to suppress the soul of the infant phaseless beast calamity, the beast soul's soul must also reach the diamond rank after being contracted by you." While the pity goddess was speaking, Lin Yuan had already used Morbius True Data to check the beast spirit soul. With one look, Lin Yuan knew the contract method of the beast spirit soul. It was a contract method that was very difficult for others. However, it was abnormally simple for Lin Yuan. Chapter 1808. This was because there were two requirements for contracting a beast spirit's soul. One was the purity of the soul's power. After consuming the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar, the impurities in his soul had been cleansed, and the purity of his soul was extremely high. He had reached the level of contracting a beast soul. The second was the requirement for willpower runes. The contract between the beast spirit soul and the source sand was somewhat similar. They all required the consumption of willpower runes before the contract. However, the source sand consumed 2 of them, while the beast soul consumed 1. The source sand was not picky about the type of willpower rune, but the beast spirit soul required a willpower rune related to the soul. If it had been yesterday, he might still have been vexed by soul-related willpower runes. But now he no longer needed to worry about soul-related willpower runes. Just a few hours ago, Lin Yuan had gathered the Jade Gui's remnant soul through the Remembrance Soul Whale and comprehended a Soul Gather willpower rune. This soul-gathering willpower rune could be used to contract the soul of a beast spirit. The phaseless beast cub strength was at the suzerain/myth I realm. He wanted to use the beast spirit's soul to parasitize and devour the soul of the infant phaseless beast. He also needed the strength of the beast soul to reach the level of suzerain/myth I to be more confident. However, Goddess Lien had just mentioned support methods. With this auxiliary method, the beast spirit soul would be able to parasitize and devour the soul of the infant phaseless beast that brought disaster to the world at the diamond rank. In that case, Lin Yuan might be able to make a move against the infant phaseless beast tonight. After all, it was not difficult for him to upgrade the beast spirit soul to diamond. The 100 Questions Beast Army had long stored a large amount of spiritual liquid. It just so happened that there was a ready-made spiritual liquid that could be used to raise the rank of the beast soul. This kind of spirit fluid that could enhance a soul-type phase grade was something that Genius had created for the Remembrance Soul Whale with its massive creation master knowledge. If I want to contract a beast soul's soul, I need a willpower rune related to the soul. Without a willpower rune related to the soul, the beast soul's soul is still useless. As for supplementary items, you can use the pollen of the Heaven and Earth Fae Enchanting Daisy. The Enchanting Daisy's pollen can suppress a Fae's soul energy to the greatest extent. I happen to have a bottle of Enchanting Daisy's pollen here. You only need to use 1/3 of the amount in the bottle to suppress the soul of the infant phaseless beastbane to the level of the diamond level. This is also the greatest effect of Enchanting Daisy's pollen. As she spoke, Lien Shun placed a porcelain bottle in front of Lin Yuan. Then, Lien Shun nodded at the Moon Empress and left the Radiant Moon Palace. Mercy Goddess thought to herself as she left. He had already done what he had to do. If he continued to stay here, the Moon Empress would only be annoyed. She had just given up so much. And if she were to leave, Lin Yuan would probably think that she was a woman who gave without asking for anything in return. In the eyes of the compassionate goddess, this kind of person was more attractive. I think Lin Yuan should have a good impression of me now. Lien Shun, who was overjoyed by her actions, did not know that Lin Yuan had become even more vigilant against her. He had never thought that he could obtain resources without paying any price. In this world, apart from the resources that he had cultivated through Morbius, perhaps only his master, the Moon Empress, would unconditionally provide him with resources without asking for anything in return. Lin Yuan originally felt that the compassionate goddess had ulterior motives, and now he was even more certain of it. Whether it was the source-type beast spirit soul that could snatch other beast species phase, or the Enchanting Daisy's pollen. The value of these things was all abnormally precious. The compassionate goddess had no reason to give them to someone who had just killed her beloved. The Moon Empress sensed that the compassionate goddess had indeed left the Radiant Moon Palace. She was certain that the compassionate goddess had ulterior motives for Lin Yuan. The compassionate goddess had reached an agreement with Radiance because of Lin Yuan. However, the Moon Empress did not think that the compassionate goddess would provide such precious resources to Lin Yuan for the same reason as Yin Lin. Yin Lin and the compassionate goddess had also given up their positions for Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress could try to understand Yin Lin's actions because she was a young girl and inexperienced. However, young girls' feelings were too ridiculous for the compassionate goddess. A selfish and cold-blooded person like Goddess Lien would never develop feelings for someone or something for no reason. The Moon Empress pondered for a moment and said to Lin Yuan, "Little Yuan, Goddess Lien has now formed an alliance with Hui Yao in her own capacity. I suspect that all of this is because of you. I don't object to you coming into contact with the Pity Goddess. It will be of great benefit to you. However, Goddess Lien must have some unknown intentions towards you. You must beware of the Pity Goddess. For a person like Goddess Lien, once she achieves her goal, you will no longer be attractive to her." The Moon Empress' words were very pertinent, and Lin Yuan was naturally willing to listen. His master, the Moon Empress, probably didn't know about the Pity God's intentions towards him. It should be because of the mermaid bloodline. He had originally thought of asking Yin Lin to help him check the Azure Federation's information, but now he felt that he should tell his master, the Moon Empress, about his guess. With the Moon Empress knowledge and experience, she might be able to guess the reason for Goddess Lien's actions. It was just like how Lin Yuan had told Mystic Moon about the whale ocean trade, and then Night Leaning Moon. There were some things that Lin Yuan could bear by himself. However, there were some things that involved the entire Hui Yao, so Lin Yuan had to tell the Moon Empress. After all, it was very likely that Goddess Lien had cooperated with Hui Yao because of him. Master, because of the source moving water you gave me, I inexplicably obtained a kind of bloodline during the process of cultivating it. It also gave me the ability to transform. During the duel between Qianyu, Lu O, and I transformed into a mermaid because of the source moving water. I feel that Goddess Lien's treatment of me has a lot to do with the bloodline in my body. I can sense that my body and Goddess Lien's body have the same bloodline. It's just that the mermaid bloodline in my body is a little higher than Goddess Lien's mermaid bloodline. This bloodline makes me involuntarily feel a sense of contempt when I see Goddess Lien. The Moon Empress originally felt strange about why Goddess Lien would treat Lin Yuan like this. After thinking about it, the Moon Empress had many guesses in her heart. At this moment, when she heard Lin Yuan's reminder, the Moon Empress suddenly remembered the legend about the mermaid bloodline. Many of the things that the Moon Empress didn't understand before suddenly connected together. Chapter 1809. The Moon Empress finally understood why Goddess Lien had gone crazy 10 years ago. She sneered in her heart. Ha ha, Goddess Lien, I've caught you by your weakness. Lin Yuan's current guess was that Goddess Lien had acted this way because of her mermaid bloodline. 10 years ago, Goddess Lien had also gone crazy because of her mermaid bloodline. Hui Yao did not have much information on the younger generation like Lu O, Han Qi, Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian. The major federations would try their best to hide the information of the younger generation. This was because the major federations regarded the younger generation as the federation's foundation and future. But Qianyu was different. Qianyu was a freedom envoy. Hui Yao had more or less some information on the 5 freedom envoys of the Freedom Federation. After all, he would be competing with these freedom envoys at the 10,000 States Conference. There was no harm in understanding the enemy's situation. Hui Yao was not the only one who knew about the freedom envoys of the Freedom Federation. The Freedom Federation also knew about Hui Yao and the envoys. For example, when Qianyu saw Lu Yifan, he generally knew what Lu Yifan's Fei and Sacred Source life form were. In the process of investigating Qianyu's information, according to the information, Goddess Lien was unusually biased toward Qianyu. Otherwise, Goddess Lien would not have publicly protected Qianyu in the Freedom Federation's family struggle. This was too inconsistent with Goddess Lien's indifference to Qianyu's death. There was a huge difference in a person's behavior when facing the same thing. Naturally, there was a reason. Lin Yuan had transformed into a mermaid during the battle with Qianyu and revealed his bloodline. Because she had discovered that Lin Yuan's mermaid bloodline was purer than Qianyu's, Goddess Lien had changed her target. Thinking about it this way, everything made sense. The Moon Empress asked Lin Yuan softly, "Little Yuan, what do you think of Goddess Lien?" Lin Yuan was slightly startled when he heard that. He was not familiar with Goddess Lien at all. What else could he think of her? Moreover, for some unknown reason, the Goddess of Mercy was constantly expressing goodwill towards him, as if she had ulterior motives. Although Goddess Lien had given Lin Yuan a large number of water-type spiritual materials with mermaid bloodlines, source-type beast spirit souls, and pollen from the heaven and earth fae enchanted daisy, this gave him the possibility of controlling the phaseless beast cub. However, he had a feeling that he was being watched. Now that his master, the Moon Empress, had asked him this question, he had no choice. Lin Yuan pondered for a moment and said, That's right. The goddess of pity is a refined egoist. Her beliefs, willpower, emotions, and wealth are all less important than herself. When the Moon Empress heard that, her expression changed slightly. The Moon Empress thought that when she asked him this question, he would analyze the compassionate goddess from the matter. Unexpectedly, Lin Yuan had directly defined the compassionate goddess. Lin Yuan's definition of the compassion goddess could be said to be very accurate. Lin Yuan clearly exposed the nature of the pity goddess. This made the Moon Empress immediately know that there was no need for her to say so much to him. There were some things that Lin Yuan understood. However, the Moon Empress was still a little worried and asked Lin Yuan, "Little Yuan, do you think you'll like the goddess of pity?" Lin Yuan was stunned for a few seconds. It could be said that Lin Yuan had never considered whether he would like someone or not. This was because Lin Yuan's relationship with anyone would progress step by step, and success would come naturally when the conditions were right. The word like was really a bit broad. Love, friendship, family, and the possessiveness of certain things could be defined as like. However, when it came to the goddess of pity, he understood some of her behaviors. In fact, Lin Yuan held a respectful attitude toward the compassionate goddess. In the future, if the goddess of pity maintained her current attitude in the process of contact, Lin Yuan felt that his attitude toward the goddess of pity would not change. Although he would not reject the goddess of pity too much, it was an objective fact that the goddess of pity had a purpose for him. Therefore, it was difficult for Lin Yuan to like the goddess of pity. Lin Yuan did not make his words very absolute and said, truthfully, "It's hard to like." When the Moon Empress heard Lin Yuan's words, her brows stretched out happily. The mermaid clan was a race that ruled by bloodline. The higher the concentration of the merfolk's bloodline, the higher their status in the merfolk race. All merfolk were pursuing partners with high bloodline. The love of high-class merfolk for low-class merfolk could stimulate the evolution of the low-class merfolk's bloodline. The goddess of pity was most likely aiming for this purpose. It was hard for Lin Yuan to like the goddess of pity, let alone love. In the Moon Empress' opinion, it was better for the goddess of pity to save Qian Yu in the team battle and then train him well. You want to make this Empress disciple fall in love with you? Oh, goddess of pity, you've worked for nothing. The Moon Empress had planned to give him the resources he had won when Lin Yuan came to the Radiant Moon Palace tomorrow. Since Lin Yuan was here tonight, the Moon Empress took out a silver ring with a special shape. This ring was made with an extremely exquisite threading technique. The metal threads, which were mixed with many kinds of spirit materials, were perfectly pinched into a flat hollow sphere. The sphere was full of dense spatial runes. In the middle of the sphere was wrapped some kind of silver crystal. The entire oblate threaded sphere was embedded in a ring holder that was polished from some kind of shell. The ring holder was inlaid with a few blue gold gems. Lin Yuan recognized these blue gold gems at a glance. They were fixed blue diamonds that were only occasionally produced in Class 5 underground dimensional rifts. The Class 5 underground dimensional rift produced a fixed space blue diamond that was usually around 1 carat. The 4 embedded blue diamonds were all 5 carats. In total, one would need to flip over at least 2 underground dimensional rifts to find a 2-carat space-fixing blue diamond. Therefore, just based on these 5-carat fixed blue diamonds, Lin Yuan knew that this ring was a good item. The Moon Empress took out the ring and handed it to Lin Yuan. Originally, the highest standard phase storage box was at diamond. A diamond phase storage box is enough to satisfy my basic needs. However, as the strength of the spirit chi professionals increases, the wealth they accumulate will also increase. Many experts above the martial emperor realm usually carry multiple pieces of spatial equipment. That would be very complicated. This ring was made by elder spacetime from the shell of the ethereal mother shellfish. It's made from the shards of pearls that fall from the aging Bene pearls. The spacetime elder is a Class 5 spirit craftsman. His aesthetics are passable. Master has already put all the things that you should have obtained into this ring. Come and take a look. What do you think of this ring? When Mystic Moon heard the Moon Empress' words, he only felt that he did not know how to complain. 7017K. Chapter 1810. Did the Moon Empress feel a sense of crisis because of the pity god's behavior toward Lin Yuan? The Moon Empress had indeed asked the Spacetime Elder to customize this ring for Lin Yuan after spending a lot of favors. However, would the Moon Empress usually have so many words? What the Moon Empress had just said was probably more than what the Moon Empress could say in a day. When Lin Yuan received the ring from the Moon Empress, he was shocked at how precious it was. Lin Yuan had heard his master, the Moon Empress, mention one of the 13 eminences of the Radiance faction. Only the Bamboo Monarch's sacred source life form was at the peak of 9 stars. The other sacred source life forms had all reached the 10-star standard. It was too extravagant to use shells from 10-star sacred source life forms and aged pearls as spirit materials. Lin Yuan first used his spiritual energy to nourish the ring in his hand before entering it. Lin Yuan found that the internal space of this ring was not as simple as just having a large space. There was a secret door in each of the 4 directions. When he opened the secret door, he could not see the end of the huge space inside. Lin Yuan speculated that it would be as big as 12 football fields. The secret doors on all 4 sides opened, and they were all the same size. The 4 hidden doors could isolate the 4 spaces very well. Even if Lin Yuan had prepared a large amount of dimensional life forms, flesh, and bodies to feed Redthorn, it wouldn't be able to survive. It would also not cause the space within this secret door to affect the other secret doors. Lin Yuan thought to himself, with this ring, his other spatial equipment could all be retired. In the future, when he went out, he only needed to wear a ring, apart from the vast space inside the ring. In one of the secret doors, Lin Yuan found that the Moon Empress had placed all the things she had won from Li Su and the Pity Goddess in this ring. In the corner, there were 2 huge purplish gold cages. This cage was the same as the cage that had imprisoned the nothingness Shadow Fiend. However, this time, the cage wasn't imprisoning a dimensional creature like the Void Shadow Fiend. Instead, it was a middle-rank devil and a great sea monster. It was a middle-rank devil in a humanoid form. It was different from the other devils, which looked ferocious and ferocious. The middle-rank devil was exceptionally beautiful, wearing a multicolored silk dress. Her translucent body added a touch of illusory feeling. Her long hair was slightly curled to her waist, and her eyes were filled with emotion. She was very much in line with human aesthetics. As for the sea demon, although it also had a human body and a fish tail, it gave off a completely different feeling from a mermaid, because a sea demon's tail was more like a snake's tail than a mermaid's tail. His skin was greenish-blue, and his arms were crossed. His sharp, dark blue fingernails would occasionally knock against the purple gold cage, and the sound of metal clashing against metal could be heard. A stream of purple water that filled the surrounding space with cold air flowed around the sea demon. This should be the life water of this big sea monster, apart from the middle-rank devil. And the sea monster, there was also a small yellow snake with 4 wings. In this huge space, it danced wantonly. The snake's body shone with a metallic luster. The snake's tail was the same as the snake's head. In other words, there was a snake head on the front and the back of the snake. This made the 4-winged flying snake look rather strange. During the flight, there were faint phenomena of water drying up, the earth cracking, earth and stones overturning, and stone pillars rising from the ground around the four-winged flying snake. Lin Yuan immediately knew that this should be the great, desolate realm's bloodline of desolation Fei that Hui Yao had used as a bet. These phenomena were the hallmarks of the great, desolate realm's bloodline of desolation Fei. It could be seen that this bloodline Fei had a completely different treatment from the middle-rank devil and the sea demon. Lin Yuan had never expected that his master, the Moon Empress, would give these things to him. After Lin Yuan withdrew his spiritual force from the ring, the Moon Empress continued to speak to him. Don't think that there are too many things in here. You deserve all of this. This is what all the majesties want. If it weren't for you, these things wouldn't have stayed with Hui Yao. They would have fallen into the hands of the Freedom Federation. The middle-rank devil for the bet was first taken out by Li Su. It's a hegemonic blade, ghost, that purely relies on its physical body to fight. After fusing, it can strengthen the body, but it will make people extremely ugly. I knew that the middle-rank devil that the Freedom Federation used as a bet wouldn't be a good thing. The hegemonic blade ghost can cooperate with you and rely on its own body to fight in close combat. However, the devil is the same as the bloodline of desolation Fei. Each person can only contract one. As the spirit chi professional's rank increases, the physical body will continue to strengthen. Therefore, it's better to have a functional devil. Now, the middle-rank devil in the ring is called the Calamity Seductive Ghost. I used the hegemonic blade ghost to exchange for it from the Pity Goddess. According to the Pity Goddess, this Calamity Seductive Ghost is the most difficult middle-rank devil to nurture. The resources consumed are more than those used to nurture a great devil. However, this middle-rank devil's growth rate is astonishing. When Lin Yuan had checked the ring's spatial ring, he hadn't used Morbius true data on the Calamity Seductive Ghost. Therefore, he didn't know how to nurture this Calamity Seductive Ghost. At that moment, Lin Yuan heard the Moon Empress continue. The Calamity Seductive Ghost needs pure elemental energy to form a calamity flower in its hands. The purer the elemental energy, the stronger the calamity flower formed by the Calamity Seductive Ghost. It's also easier for the Calamity Seductive Ghost to transform into a great devil. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan's heart immediately bloomed with joy. In the origin world, spirit chi and elemental energy existed in the air and were everywhere. However, the most precious things in this world were the purest spirit chi and elemental energy. High-class creation masters competed to see who could concoct the highest concentration of spirit chi, who could prepare the pure elemental energy, using the elemental shellfish to nurture heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls was just the simplest medium that creation masters had discovered during their exploration process. This was because it was more difficult to concoct pure elemental energy through spiritual ingredients than to prepare pure spirit chi. Therefore, creation masters relied on the various types of elemental shellfish. Even the center of the volcanic crater was contaminated by the earth elemental energy. The purity of the fire elemental energy was not as pure as the elemental energy in ordinary heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. Moreover, without the strength of Emperor class, there was no chance to go to the center of the volcano to absorb the fire elemental energy. At present, the goddess Graupel elemental pearls were legends. What Lin Yuan relied on was not just the goddess Graupel elemental pearls. 7017K. Chapter 1811. If Lin Yuan wanted to concoct the purest elemental energy, he could use elemental pearls and the elemental well's water. Could the calamity lascivious ghost quickly evolve from a middle-rank devil to a great devil while ensuring the purity of the elemental energy? His master, the Moon Empress, did not know of Morbius' existence or the elemental well. However, she had accidentally chosen a middle-rank devil that was most convenient for him to nurture. Through the battles with the Freedom Federation's younger generation, Lin Yuan could clearly feel the difference in strength between a great devil and a middle-rank devil. This was the difference in power, or rather ability, between a greater devil and a lesser devil. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian relied on the combination of three sacred source life forms. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian relied on the combination of three sacred source life forms. Apart from Kaihua, everyone else had a contract. Qian Yu, Yanling, and Yu Changjian did not rely on fusing with a middle-rank devil. The main reason was that the three middle-rank devils were not strong and could not be relied on. Lu O was the opposite. Lu O did not even have a chance to use his sacred source life form before he was restrained by Gao Feng. Most of the Fays were at Diamond X/Fantasy V. During the battle, there was no eye-catching performance. The strongest phaseless beast cub was still in a stalemate with Lin Yuan and had been placed in confinement by him. It could be said that Luo's strength was completely due to the great devil he had contracted. Luo was also aware of this and immediately fused with the great devil. He used an unknown method to kill the insect swarm created by the parasitic rot flying locusts. Through actual combat, he knew very well how much a middle-rank devil would improve when it transformed into a greater devil. When Lin Yuan obtained the other devils, he contracted them. He did not dare to guarantee that he could improve them to a great devil. After all, in the entire Freedom Federation, there were not many examples of middle-rank devils transforming into great devils. If the calamity lascivious ghost relied on pure elemental energy to improve its strength, in that case, Lin Yuan was confident. In this world, he had never been afraid of anyone when it came to preparing elemental energy. According to his observations, even if his master, the Moon Empress, became a creation master, she would become a newly defined Class 6 creation master. His master, the Moon Empress, was inferior to him in terms of mixing pure elemental energy. In fact, the goddess of compassion had more than one intermediate devil under her control. Goddess Lian's hobby was to hoard supplies. None of the three middle-rank devils in his hands looked ugly. The Moon Empress had chosen the flower-bane seductive ghost because she knew that Lin Yuan had a way to concoct pure elemental energy. According to Chef Supreme, Lin Yuan had given Zhong Zhe a heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl with the goddess Gossamer's charm. Chef Supreme thought he had given it to Lin Yuan. Before breaking through, the Moon Empress didn't have the ability to use the scorching elemental shellfish to nurture heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls with the goddess Graupel's charm. Thus, the Moon Empress did not say that she would provide him with heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls. However, not providing Lin Yuan with heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls did not mean that the Moon Empress could not help him in other aspects. The Moon Empress took out a jade box that she had just prepared and handed it to him. After Lin Yuan received the jade box, the Moon Empress spoke. "Little Yuan, the pure elemental energy that can be produced in this world is far from just water, fire, wind, and earth. It's just that these four types of elemental energy are the most common. They can be cultivated through the elemental shellfish. That's why they are the most common. But this does not mean that pure elemental energy of other attributes cannot be produced through phase. The Brahma insect cage's dark crystal beetle can produce pure dark-type energy. There are 10 dark crystal beetles and 10 moonlight water lilies in this box. 5 thunder liquid snails, 5 wood-winged sandflies, and 1 frozen frost carp. These fays that can produce pure spirit chi of various attributes are all in their infancy stage. They only need to be cultivated through pure spirit chi. They do not need special guidance, at elite like the elemental shellfish. Upon hearing the Moon Empress words, Lin Yuan immediately knew the weight of this box. The dark crystal beetle was specially cultivated by the Brahma insect cage. The Brahma insect cage had always been regarded as a treasure and never traded with outsiders. It only occasionally sold the shell of the dark crystal beetle at a high price. Back then, the Brahma insect cage had not known that he was the Moon Empress disciple. She was also afraid that he would pursue the matter of the Brahma insect cage's collision. The Brahma insect cage had wanted to cooperate with him in exchange for the golden lotus pearl. That was why the Brahma insect cage was willing to take out 3 dark crystal beetles. Now, his master, the Moon Empress, had given him 10 of them. His master, the Moon Empress, must have spoken for him and the Brahma insect cage. Lin Yuan had heard of the thunder liquid snail and had always wanted to find it, but he could not find it. The thunder liquid snail could absorb pure spirit chi and release dark purple mucus. This mucus was a substance that contained pure lightning energy. As for the purity of the thunder-type energy, it was related to the spirit chi absorbed by the thunder liquid snail. The stronger the spirit chi absorbed, the purer the mucus secreted by the thunder liquid snail would be. The wood-winged sandfly was a very special winged insect species fae. It liked to build its nest with jade-textured wood. By gnawing on the jade-textured wood and absorbing spirit chi, it would form a wing cocoon to wrap itself. Eventually, it would turn into a pupa and die. The pupa of the wood-winged sandfly contained extremely pure wood-type energy. According to this method, these 5 wood-winged sandflies seemed to be consumable fays. However, that was not the case. Before the wood-winged sandfly turned into a pupa, it would build a small nest on the jade-textured wood that it was resting on. It would then lay its eggs inside. The eggs needed to be nourished with extremely pure spirit chi to have the possibility of hatching. The wood-winged sandfly would lay 2 to 5 eggs at a time. However, in the hands of other creation masters, it was already very lucky to be able to hatch 1 or 2 eggs. However, in the spirit lock spatial zone, as long as there were no problems with the insect eggs, the wood-winged sandfly could hatch as many as it produced. The thunder liquid snail and the wood-winged sandfly were all learned by Lin Yuan through Genius, who had searched the entire Starweb's knowledge. They were truly legendary strategic class fays. There was once an advanced Class 4 creation master who posted news on the Starweb. He was willing to keep himself for a year in exchange for a wood-winged sandfly. In the end, he didn't manage to exchange for it. He only obtained a wood-winged sandfly egg. Even so, this advanced Class 4 creation master was willing to keep himself for 3 months. Fortunately, this wood-winged sandfly egg hatched in the end. This advanced Class 4 creation master treated it as a gift and gave it to a pinnacle Class 4 creation master. In exchange, he obtained 2 kinds of secret spirit fluid formulas. As for that ice-sealed cold carp, it wasn't an ordinary fae, but a heaven and earth fae. 7017K. Chapter 1812. A heaven and earth fae like the icebound cold carp, even in an area where the temperature was above 50 degrees all year round. As long as it was in a body of water, it could immediately freeze the water. Then it could break the ice and swim in the frozen body of water. The ice element was a variant of the water element and could not be formulated separately. It was just like how it could not be separated from the earth element to prepare the sand element. However, if the heavenly maiden grade elemental pearls were crushed and blended into the water, the icebound cold carp would be thrown into the water with the heavenly maiden grade elemental pearl powder. A portion of the water element energy would be absorbed by the icebound cold carp. Finally, the icebound cold carp would be fished out. The water element energy would be converted into ice element energy. Although heaven and earth phase were not necessarily unique, there would not be two of them at the same time. Even if Lin Yuan's reflection Sun King Lotus had been split into nearly 100 plants, that was also the reason why the reflection Sun King Lotus mother body had absorbed pure elemental energy in the spirit pool and finally split. It was a split from the mother body and not a special evolution in nature. It could be said that his master, the Moon Empress, had given him the ability to prepare the water element into ice element. This jade box, including the things inside, weighed about 1 to 2 kilograms. However, it felt extremely heavy in Lin Yuan's hands. The Moon Empress was used to being rejected by Lin Yuan. Seeing that Lin Yuan had been holding the jade box without putting it away, she hurriedly said, "These things are to help you improve your strength as soon as possible. These things are to help you improve your strength as soon as possible." Although the previous Radiance Envoy will be leading the 10,000 States Conference in 2 years, but the Radiance Envoys of your batch will definitely participate. Little Yuan, you are growing very fast. 2 years later, you will not be weaker than the previous Radiance Envoy. You will only be stronger than them. I believe you have also felt that there are many geniuses among the Freedom Federation's younger generation. The 10,000 States Conference in 2 years' time is not easy to say who will win or lose. Also, in the previous battles, our Radiance Envoy did not have the advantage. Therefore, you have to improve your strength as much as possible. Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded slightly. At that moment, Lin Yuan would no longer refuse the resources that his master, the Moon Empress, had given him. Firstly, it was just as the Moon Empress had said. He really needed these things to increase his strength. Otherwise, even if he spent a year, he might not be able to get so many dark crystal beetles, thunder plasma snails, creation wood winged sandflies, and other phase that could produce elemental energy. His master, the Moon Empress, had these things because of her status. It was also because of the accumulation of time. Secondly, he now had the ability to help the Moon Empress. He could feel that the Moon Empress was very similar to him. This way, if he accepted the things that his master, the Moon Empress, had given him, it wouldn't be easy for his master to reject him when he gave his master something. He stored the jade box into the ring that his master, the Moon Empress, had just given him. Then she asked softly, "Master, I've heard of the other things in this jade box, but this moonlight water lily." Upon hearing that, the Moon Empress revealed a gentle smile. He reached out and peeled a grape for Lin Yuan. "I used the sacred weeping moon beast's tear to induce the sacred light water lotus to mutate into a fae. Just like the other spiritual items in the jade box, it can produce light elemental energy." Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded. When Lin Yuan nurtured the middle rank flower bane ghost, he could use 9 types of elements: water, fire, earth, wind, wood, ice, darkness, light, and thunder. The mother of Bloodbath's disciple was that heaven and earth fae, the blood brew grapevine. The blood energy in its fruit and leaves was also considered one type. Lin Yuan could now produce 10 types of pure elemental energy. If the flower bane ghost absorbed one type of elemental energy, a calamity flower would appear in its hand. After Lin Yuan's nurturing, the flower bane ghost should already be able to hold flowers. However, Lin Yuan suddenly thought of a problem. The flower bane ghost was a female ghost. If he fused with a female ghost, what would he look like? It had to be known that when Han Qi, Yanling, Qianyu, and Yu Changjian fused with the middle-rank flower bane ghost, based on the characteristics and abilities of the middle-rank flower bane ghost, their appearance would change. Heavens! Fusing with Blue to become a human fish was fine, but now it was fusing with a female ghost. Lin Yuan suddenly felt that he seemed to be going in the wrong direction on the contract path. From Lin Yuan's strange expression, the Moon Empress seemed to have seen through his thoughts. The Moon Empress coughed lightly and spoke in a serious tone. The Flower Bane ghost has always been the Freedom Federation's secret. Outsiders have no way of knowing. But according to my conversation with Goddess Lien before you came, I know that there are two ways to contract a Flower Bane ghost. One is to use the Flower Bane ghost as the main body and the Flower Bane ghost as a support. Under this contract method, the Flower Bane ghost will fuse with the Flower Bane ghost. For example, Han Qi, Yanling, Yu Changjian, and even Xianyu. The advantage of this method is that it has a better strengthening effect on the physical body. However, in battle, it will easily affect one's mind. Demons like to hide, and with the Flower Bane ghost as the main contract method, the Flower Bane ghost would normally not be willing to come out and fight the enemy head-on. This is also why the Flower Bane ghost escaped after Han Qi's death and was finally killed by you. The Moon Empress paused for a moment before continuing. The other method is to use oneself as the main body and the Flower Bane ghost as a support. However, this contract method requires the spirit chi professional to have sufficiently powerful soul power. There is no way to specifically measure soul power. It can only be estimated. Goddess Lien said that only those with a soul value of 200 can use themselves as the main body to contract the Flower Bane ghost. Under normal circumstances, a marrow contract with a sacred source life form needs to have a peak soul value of 80. Calculating it, only those who can contract 2 half-sacred source life forms can try to use themselves as the main body to contract the Flower Bane ghost. Lu O used himself as the main body to contract the Flower Bane ghost. After fusing with the Flower Bane ghost, there will only be ghost patterns on the face and 4 long horns on the head. Only when the Flower Bane ghost's ability is deeply stimulated will the Flower Bane ghost affect the Flower Bane ghost, and a part of the Flower Bane ghost's body will demonize. However, the other parts will remain the same. Lu O stimulated the Flower Bane ghost in his body, but only a tail appeared in the end. It shouldn't be too hard to accept. Furthermore, he used himself as the main body and the Flower Bane ghost as a support to carry out the contract. The greatest advantage is that he can summon the Flower Bane ghost during battle and use it as a fey to fight. When a Flower Bane ghost fuses with a spirit chi professional, it will strengthen the spirit chi professional. But in essence, it is equivalent to suppressing the Flower Bane ghost's combat power. Upon hearing the Moon Empress words, Lin Yuan's heart suddenly stirred. Then he suddenly frowned. Chapter 1813. However, Lu O still didn't summon his contracted greater devil even after losing the duel. From the looks of it, Lu O had purposely hidden her strength during the battle. The Moon Empress seemed to have seen through Lin Yuan's thoughts. She smiled at him and explained. Little Yuan, Lu O actually didn't hide his strength. Lu O chose to bet on Qianyu during the battle. Qianyu possesses an 8-star sacred source life form. He is indeed worthy of Lu O's bet. Lu O gave all of the great devil's origin power to Qianyu. Even if I summon a greater devil, it won't have much combat power. And if I'm not wrong, the great devil that Lu O contracted should be Gluttony, one of the 7 original great devils. The ability of this great devil is the greatest secret of the Freedom Federation. Once they are summoned, Bamboo Monarch, Supreme Chef, and I will be able to see through them. Therefore, before Lu O came to Radiance, he probably received an order not to summon the contracted greater devil. However, 2 years later, when Lu O's great devil grows up, he will definitely be qualified to be your opponent. The Moon Empress had witnessed Lin Yuan's strength in the general beheading battle and the team battle. He knew how fast Lin Yuan was improving. However, the Moon Empress still said so because she knew very well that the Dragon King was not the only one. Just how strong were the 7 primordial greater devils in the Freedom Federation's Devil Church? Upon hearing the Moon Empress' words, Lin Yuan nodded. Lin Yuan now had the posture of reaching the top among his peers. However, Lin Yuan had never lost his reverence. He knew very well that his opponents and enemies would never be his peers. His master, the Moon Empress, had said that a sacred source life form's soul limit was 80. Only those with a soul peak of 200 could form a contract with the devil. From his conversation with Morbius, he had learned that each of his souls had the possibility of contracting 2 sacred source life forms. Even if the peak value of one of his souls was less than 200, the peak value of 2 souls added together would at least exceed 320. Therefore, Lin Yuan had to use himself as the master to form a contract with the devil. It was not difficult for Lin Yuan. When the Moon Empress saw Lin Yuan, she frowned slightly as though she was thinking about something. She thought that her words had given Lin Yuan pressure. This was not in line with the Moon Empress' original intention. The Moon Empress knew very well that it must have been very hard for Lin Yuan to have his current strength in such a short time. Although the Moon Empress dared to fight against the heavens in the process of increasing her strength, the Moon Empress didn't dare to do so. However, he did not want Lin Yuan to work too hard. Within the Freedom Federation's Devil Church, there were 7 original great devils. Hui Yao's desolate mystic realm produced desolate bloodline fays that were not bad at all. Although the desolate bloodline fay didn't have a great devil as soon as it appeared, it was still a desolate bloodline fay. However, its growth potential was surprisingly high. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation were using the Devils and Desolation's bloodline phase as stakes, so they naturally wouldn't give the other party anything good. The Freedom Federation took out the Overlord Blade Ghost at first, and Hui Yao didn't take out the Rattlesnake at first, but the Butcher Frog. The Butchering Frog's ability was to absorb a portion of the target's energy for a period of time by continuously killing life forms of the same strength as itself to increase its own strength. Butcher Frog's ability was very useful when he was weak. By killing targets of the same strength as itself, it could increase its own strength and allow it to fight beyond its tier. However, when Butcher Frog's strength increased to Myth Breed, it would need to kill a Myth Breed Fae in order to use this ability. To nurture a Myth Breed Fae required a huge amount of resources. Under normal circumstances, basically no one would be able to afford the consumption of Butcher Frog. Butcher Frog's conversion rate wasn't high, only around 2% to 5%. In other words, the Myth Breed Butcher Frog had to kill at least 20 other Myth Breeds to double its strength. Furthermore, there was a time limit for the increase in strength. This was because the energy absorbed by Butcher Frog wasn't its own. It would eventually dissipate into the surrounding environment with the passage of time. This was already the case for Butcher Frog with the strength of a Myth Breed, but when Butcher Frog's strength increased to immortal or even eternal, where could they find so many life forms of the same strength for Butcher Frog to kill? Therefore, after a series of choices, Butcher Frog was treated as a sacrificial pawn by Hui Yao. After all, there wasn't a bet that could guarantee a 100% win. Therefore, preparations had to be made in advance. In the end, Lin Yuan led Hui Yao's younger generation to defeat the Freedom Federation's younger generation. No matter what, Butcher Frog couldn't be given to Lin Yuan. Among the desolate bloodline phase, there were no life forms that were born in the great desolate realm. However, some desolate bloodline phase would have extremely fragmented scenes of desolation around them when they were born. Such desolate bloodline phase could quickly reach the great desolate realm after being induced postnatally. For example, the sounding snake in Lin Yuan's spatial ring was a desolate bloodline fae born with fragmented scenes of desolation. After being nurtured by the Moon Empress, this sounding snake had already reached the Great Desolate Realm. However, it had just reached the Great Desolate Realm and hadn't solidified yet. It needed a period of accumulation. Little Yuan, the desolate bloodline fae in your spatial ring, is called the sounding snake. Wherever the sounding snake goes, there will be a drought. You can develop in the swamp world. With this sounding snake, you won't need to spend so much effort to create land in the swamp world. The bloodline of the desolate bloodline phase also has a certain level of classification. Your golden wings and this sounding snake are of the same level. This sounding snake has become your private property. You can contract it with whoever you want. Thinking of this, the Moon Empress paused for a moment before saying to Lin Yuan, "Mystic Moon's strength has broken through because of the pure spirit chi you gave her. Although it's not her holiness, Wen Yu has basically been set as the next member of the Radiant Light Knights because of her phase abilities. Therefore, Mystic Moon can obtain a Desolate Bloodline Fae. Mystic Moon's Desolate Bloodline Fae spot should be reserved for Wen Yu. If you give this sounding snake to Wen Yu, Mystic Moon's Desolate Bloodline Fae will be given to you." In fact, before the Moon Empress spoke, Lin Yuan had been struggling with who he should give the Desolate Bloodline Fae in his hand. Because of the Insect Queen, even as Her Holiness disciple, Lu Jie could not contract a Desolate Bloodline Fae. Wen Yu and Chu Ci were both the best candidates to obtain the sounding snake. Chu Ci was still young, and if she wanted to contract a Desolate Bloodline Fae, there were very high requirements for soul power and spiritual energy. Therefore, Chu Ci was not in a hurry. Chapter 1814. If a person who mainly contracted a devil could summon a devil, he would become stronger. However, Lin Yuan was not sure if he would have a chance to obtain a bloodline of desolation fae if he did not leave the Mingxi with Chu Ci. However, no matter how he looked at it, the Mingxi's ability had nothing to do with Chu Ci. The Mingxi was more suitable for Wen Yu to contract when you focused on functionality. When it came to Fey contracts, there was no such thing as a combat system. The Mingxi could make the swamp dry up and form land in the swamp world. To Lin Yuan, it was a kind of strategic resource. After dealing with the mess in the Agawan continent, Lin Yuan was ready to go to the swamp world to explore it. If Mystic Moon could prepare a bloodline of desolation fae for Wen Yu, Lin Yuan would not need to worry anymore. It was better to let Wen Yu contract the Mingxi. When Chu Ci was old enough to contract a bloodline of desolation fae, then he would let Mystic Moon choose a bloodline of desolation fae for Chu Ci according to her fighting style. The Moon Empress told Lin Yuan a lot about the bloodline of desolation fae. Although Lin Yuan had heard some from Lu Yifan before, Lu Yifan's explanation was obviously not as detailed as the Moon Empress. Now, Lin Yuan completely understood the division of the bloodline of desolation phase. Moreover, the Great Desolate Realm was not the limit of the bloodline phase. However, to break through to the Great Desolate Realm, it was possible to step on the path to heaven and awaken the birth providence. Listening to the Moon Empress explanation, Lin Yuan suddenly returned to the time when the Moon Empress had just accepted him as a disciple and had questions and answers with him all day long. While explaining to Lin Yuan, the Moon Empress answered his questions from time to time. The Moon Empress found that the questions Lin Yuan asked were getting more and more difficult. There were some problems that he needed to think deeply about. This let the Moon Empress know that Lin Yuan was also constantly improving in terms of knowledge. This progress should be inseparable from Lin Yuan's cat species Fae. When she first saw the cat species Fae, the Moon Empress was surprised from the bottom of her heart. She did not expect that there would be such a Fae in the world. Just like when Lin Yuan saw the phaseless beast, he could not infer what kind of Fae it had evolved from. When the Moon Empress observed Genius, she couldn't tell that Genius had evolved from the 100 Questions beast. Back then, Goddess Lien was also at the scene. She also found out about Genius' situation. Fortunately, the compassionate god was on Lin Yuan's side due to her bloodline. Otherwise, things wouldn't be so easy to solve. Smart existences were very likely to assassinate and target him. Through Genius, the Moon Empress had already seen Lin Yuan's vast path as a creation master. He thought of the sea demon that Yin Lin had given to Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress asked Lin Yuan, "Little Yuan, are you on good terms with the 4th Azure envoy of the Azure Federation?" Upon hearing that, Lin Yuan nodded. Then he explained, "Master, my relationship with Yin Lin is because of her sacred source life form. As Wenyu's master, Xian, you naturally knew the abilities of Wenyu's sacred source life form. If Mystic Moon had any matters, she would usually inform her master, the Moon Empress. Previously, the Moon Empress had even taken the initiative to give Wenyu a batch of spiritual materials that could increase her mental energy. As such, the Moon Empress was well aware of Wenyu's sacred source life form's abilities. Hearing Lin Yuan's explanation, the Moon Empress immediately linked many things together. Before Yin Lin had awakened her dual beast patterns, she had been blind and had no name in the Azure Federation. Now, the situation had reversed. She must have received Lin Yuan's favor. No wonder Yin Lin had treated Lin Yuan so well. She had even been willing to give Lin Yuan the sea demon that had awakened its life form, Purple Frost, Heavy Water. Previously, the Moon Empress had not told Lin Yuan about the situation in the Azure Federation's Lantis mystic realm. Now, Lin Yuan had obtained the sea demon. In battle, the sea demon would be of great help to Lin Yuan in his merfolk transformation. To form a contract with the sea demon, one would need a little more soul power than a marrow contract sacred source life form. Lin Yuan would definitely be able to form a contract with it. However, forming a contract with the sea demon had an additional restriction compared to forming a contract with a devil. Before that, one had to use the strange water to cleanse one's body. Using the strange water to cleanse one's body was a very dangerous thing. Many young prodigies in the Azure Federation used the strange water to cleanse their bodies in order to form a contract with the sea demon. If there was a mistake, the body would be severely injured and the strange water's water characteristics would invade one's bones. One would have to endure more terrible torture than the rheumatism and rheumatoid disease that ordinary people suffered from. In the worst case, one would die without being able to be saved. If Lin Yuan had not been able to fuse with the source water and become a merman, he would have been blessed by the Blue Lotus. The Moon Empress actually did not approve of Lin Yuan taking the risk to form a contract with the sea demon. However, Lin Yuan had these two guarantees. Using the strange water to cleanse one's body was simply too simple. Little Yuan, the sea demon that Yin Lin gave you has awakened the Purple Frost Heavy Water. The Purple Frost Heavy Water can be ranked above average among the life forms that all the sea demons can awaken. The Lantis mystic realm is even more special than the Devil Church and the Desolate mystic realm. The Lantis mystic realm only produces one kind of life form, and that is sea demons. After being nurtured, a portion of sea demons can become sea demons. After becoming a sea demon, they undergo nurturing. Through the induction of a large amount of water elements, a portion of sea demons can awaken their life form water and obtain extremely powerful elemental combat abilities. A portion of the sea demons will rapidly age and decay. At present, there should not be more than 30 sea demons in the Azure Federation that have awakened their life form water. Among them, the Purple Frost Heavy Water can be ranked above average, probably between the 10th and 15th position. However, the Purple Frost Heavy Water's ranking is so low not because its ability is not strong enough. A drop of purple frost heavy water weighs 500 kilograms. It can curse the enemy target that is touched by the water, causing the body to gather cold air and freeze to death. When targeting its own target, the cold air will gather on the target surface and enhance the target's defense. When the opponent comes into contact with its own target's body, the curse will be transmitted into the target's body and cause severe frostbite on the part of the target that comes into contact with its own target. The Azure Federation's sea demons that have awakened their life form water might not be able to fuse like the Freedom Federation's great devils, but they can attach their spirit to weapons. However, it is not recommended to attach it to ordinary weapons and weapons transformed from phase. Ordinary weapons and weapons transformed from phase may be eroded by the life form water and cause them to shatter. However, artifacts are the best targets for the sea demons to attach their spirit to. Wait for me to refine the body of the hidden sea muse, an 8-star sacred source life form, into an artifact. If the sea demons that have awakened the purple frost heavy water are attached to it, it can greatly increase the artifact's power. Chapter 1815. The Moon Empress had said so much, but she had not gotten to the main topic. The sea demon that had awakened the purple frost heavy water was obviously very strong. Why was it only ranked 10th to 15th among all the sea demons? It was because the Moon Empress first had to gain his approval for this sea demon that had awakened the purple frost heavy water. Only then would Lin Yuan be willing to put in the effort to nurture this sea demon that had been ranked lower, because it was difficult to nurture. It was true that Yin Lin favored Lin Yuan. The Moon Empress had originally thought that Yin Lin had fallen in love with Lin Yuan at first sight. From Lin Yuan, she had learned that Yin Lin favored Lin Yuan because of the sacred source life form, the Celestial Body Council. The sacred source life form, the Celestial Body Council, first had to redeem a person who truly needed help. Then, the person who was redeemed needed to contribute loyalty. Therefore, this could explain why Yin Lin would give him the best things as much as possible. The Radiance Federation and the Azure Federation were allies. However, they were not so good that they would hand over their foundational resources. Desolate Bloodline Phase and Sea Demons were the foundational resources of the Radiance Federation and the Azure Federation. Even if they used the Sea Demons as the stakes, Lan Sun would be present. Lan Sun would only agree with Yin Lin to use the lowest-ranked Sea Demon. In the end, it would be this Sea Demon that had awakened the purple frost heavy water. The Moon Empress, Yin Lin, and Lan Sun had communicated. They had given some benefits to the Azure Federation. Lan Sun knew that the Moon Empress could purify the eternal heart. He was naturally willing to accept her favor. In addition, Yin Lin had been helping Lin Yuan, so Lan Sun could only nod. This sea demon that had awakened the purple frost heavy water had just been nurtured because it could weaken the enemy and strengthen allies. It was ranked in the top 5 among all the sea demons. The resources needed to nurture the sea demons were the same as the resources needed to hatch the island whale. It required water elemental energy and a huge amount of spirit chi. Although there was a difference in the purity of elemental energy and spirit chi concentration. It was not much different from the island whale hatching. However, there were exceptions to everything. This sea demon that had awakened the purple frost heavy water required unusually high spirit chi concentration and water elemental energy purity. It required a spirit chi concentration prepared by a Class 5 Creation Master to grow. The Azure Federation might have Class 5 Creation Masters. However, how could these Class 5 Creation Masters have the time to be deeply bound with a great sea demon? Continuously preparing pure spiritual chi for this sea monster? A sea monster that had awakened its natal water was indeed good. However, when the investment far exceeded the benefits, it was meaningless. After weighing the pros and cons, he decided to give this uncontracted great sea demon to the Moon Empress and gain her friendship. It was a great choice. Among the resources given by the Moon Empress, there were plenty of Creation Master resources. These Creation Master resources contained extremely pure spirit chi. The purity of this spiritual energy far exceeded Lan Sun's understanding. Lan Sun felt that even if the Moon Empress became a Class 6 Creation Master, she wouldn't be able to produce such pure spirit chi, right? Even though the Moon Empress had placed a restriction on the pure spirit chi, such that only Yin herself could use it, the Moon Empress did not allow Yin to use it. Yin was an Azure envoy of the Azure Federation. Letting Yin use it was the same as letting the Azure Federation use it. Lan Sun did not even think about it, and directly agreed. After the Moon Empress exchanged for this great sea demon, whose natal water was the purple frost-heavy water, she was abnormally happy. Others didn't have high-purity spirit chi, but her disciple, Lin Yuan, didn't lack it at all. Back then, Lin Yuan had given him nearly 1,000 nightmare spirit peonies. As long as she took out half of them, she didn't have to worry about this sea monster's future improvement. Besides, the sea monster was not the end of the sea monster bloodline. The evolution of the sea monster bloodline had a great relationship with the concentration of spirit chi and the purity of water element energy in the environment. In the Azure Federation, there was an expert who transformed the sea monster bloodline into a sea demon king. The Azure Dragon family's old patriarch made the Sea Demon King bloodline further and became the Sea Demon Emperor. Like the merfolk, the higher the bloodline, the more dominant they were in the race. The Azure Dragon family's old patriarch was only a Class 5 Creation Master. The concentration of spirit chi and the purity of elemental energy were not as good as Lin Yuan's. The Moon Empress was looking forward to this sea monster that had awakened purple frost heavy water to become the Sea Demon Emperor in Lin Yuan's hands. It could even break through the inherent understanding of Sea Demon Emperor. Little Yuan, nurturing this sea demon is a difficult problem for others. I know you have the ability to prepare pure spirit chi. This sea monster is very easy to cultivate in your hands. The Azure Federation's control of sea monsters is extremely strict. There has been no situation of sea monsters being exposed before. Therefore, the Radiance Federation doesn't have any information related to sea monsters. How far this sea monster can go depends on the results of your cultivation in the future. The Moon Empress had dealt with the experts of the Azure Federation, but there was no chance to fight with them. She knew that when some sea monsters transformed into sea demon kings, their life water would change, but she didn't know enough. This kind of incomplete information might affect Lin Yuan's cultivation of the sea monster. Lin Yuan could even cultivate the sky-knowing destiny beast and the great yellow new sun sparrow. Wouldn't it be more than enough to improve the bloodline of a sea monster? The purpose of the Moon Empress calling Lin Yuan had been completely completed. Before leaving, the Moon Empress helped Lin Yuan's extreme token recharge the Moonlight Domain. The Moon Empress' strength had been improved, and the Moonlight Domain's strength had greatly increased. The life-saving trump card that the Moon Empress gave Lin Yuan naturally needed to be improved. In addition to improving the extreme token, the Moon Empress also gave Lin Yuan the Crescent Moon Glow token that she had given to the Mother of Bloodbath. During the team battle against the Freedom Federation's younger generation, Lin Yuan had killed several of them. It was inevitable that the Freedom Federation's experts would remember him. In the future, Lin Yuan would have to go to the Divine Wood Federation and the Swamp World to develop. In these two places, Lin Yuan might encounter danger. The Moon Empress had given Lin Yuan the Void, shadowy demon, which was at the peak of creation at that time, to become Lin Yuan's guardian. But in just a few months, Lin Yuan's improvement in strength had made the void, shadowy demon useless. The void shadowy demon was obviously not enough to protect Lin Yuan, although creating the crescent moon glow token would seal a part of the Moon Empress strength. The crescent moon glow token was Lin Yuan's life-saving trump card. In the Moon Empress' opinion, everything was worth it. Lin Yuan did not leave the Radiant Moon Palace that night. Instead, he had a good night's rest in the Radiant Moon Palace's pavilion. Early the next morning, Lin Yuan, who was bathing in the hot spring, gently stirred the hot spring with his hand as his thoughts churned. Chapter 1816. Lin Yuan was not a person who liked to look back at the past. However, Lin Yuan could not help but make a staged summary of himself at that moment. In just 10 months, a sickly youth from the Xia region had become a prodigy of the present age. How he walked step by step was still vivid in Lin Yuan's mind. Lin Yuan had never been proud or satisfied with his achievements. As his strength increased, Lin Yuan's sense of responsibility and mission became heavier. Fortunately, no one from the Radiance had died in the confrontation with the Freedom Federation's envoys. Lin Yuan collected his thoughts. He had more expectations for the future. Morbius had said that it would wake up in 8 hours. However, for some unknown reason, Morbius had yet to wake up. Even last night, when Lin Yuan thought that it would take 8 hours for Morbius to wake up, Lin Yuan realized that he could no longer enter the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan realized that he could no longer enter the Spirit Lock spatial zone. Lin Yuan immediately knew that such a situation would happen. It should be due to the fusion of this emerald gem that caused the Spirit Lock spatial zone to change. Whether it was the appearance of the blue stone bowl or the elemental well, the Spirit Lock spatial zone was completely sealed for a period of time. It could be assumed that Morbius himself had not expected such a change. Otherwise, Morbius would definitely tell him in advance. Such a sudden evolution would probably not take a long time. Lin Yuan estimated that Morbius should be able to wake up today. He changed into a set of moonlight spirit chi clothes that the spirit attendant brought. The fabric of this set of spirit chi clothes was moon brocade. In the entire Radiance, only his master, the Moon Empress, could use moon brocade. Wearing the moon brocade, it was as if he was wrapped in a ball of moonlight, and it was abnormally comfortable. After putting on this set of spirit chi clothes made of moon brocade, Lin Yuan looked in the mirror. He realized that his hair was slightly longer. He pressed down his bangs and could already cover his eyebrows. Lin Yuan summoned the source sand and let it extract the feathers made of day and night spirit silver. 10 feathers flew around Lin Yuan's head. With the source sand's precise control of these feathers, Lin Yuan's hair was soon done. Lin Yuan, whose hair was much shorter, immediately changed his style. Originally, Lin Yuan's hair was slightly longer, and it covered his forehead, making him look relatively soft. However, Lin Yuan, who had exposed his forehead, displayed his extremely superior forehead. His forehead was pulled up, and his originally perfect bone form made Lin Yuan feel a little less youthful, but his noble aura was greatly enhanced. After Lin Yuan stepped out of his small pavilion, he saw a few spirit attendants cleaning in front of his pavilion. When the 2 spirit attendants saw Lin Yuan, they subconsciously wanted to greet him. None of the spirit attendants dared to slight Lin Yuan, the young lord of the Radiant Moon Palace. But when the 2 spirit attendants saw Lin Yuan's face, they were shocked. He suddenly realized that the short-haired Lin Yuan seemed to be a different person. He had become more manly than before. The spirit attendants were all in their early 20s, around 23 or 24 years old. When Lin Yuan had first arrived at the Radiant Moon Palace, he had looked like a 16-year-old youth due to his tender face. Therefore, These spirit attendants did not treat Lin Yuan as a peer. But when they looked at Lin Yuan now, the two spirit attendants couldn't help but blush. His little highness had grown up. He didn't know when he could get a cabbage back. There were rumors that the Azure envoys leading the Azure Federation's envoy were rather close to their little highness. No one knew if it was true or not. Upon seeing the two spirit attendants greet him, Lin Yuan smiled at them. He didn't notice that because of his smile, the two spirit attendants' faces became even redder. He accompanied his master, the Moon Empress, for breakfast. The Moon Empress then set off for the Radiance Royal Palace to prepare for the Royal Palace Conference. Under normal circumstances, the Moon Empress would only go to the Radiance Royal Palace a few times a year. Sometimes she would go 7 or 8 times, and sometimes she would only go 2 or 3 times. But during this month, the Moon Empress had gone to the Radiance Royal Palace at least 15 times. More than half of the conferences were related to Lin Yuan. Just now, the Moon Empress received news that the Heaven-Blessed Mansion's Grand Hall Master, Ziqing, wanted to cooperate with the Radiance Federation. The Moon Empress was very clear about where Ziqing had been staying after coming to the Radiance Federation. Ziqing and the Radiance Federation's alliance should be inseparable from Lin Yuan. Since Lin Yuan had such a good relationship with the Heaven-Blessed Mansion, the Moon Empress had achieved her goal. Back then, the Moon Empress had indeed made the right choice when she had arranged for the Mother of Bloodbath to be Lin Yuan's path protector. Now, in addition to having the bloodline of Desolation Fey, Lin Yuan was about to contract a middle-rank devil and a large sea demon. Lin Yuan had the special foundation of the 3 major federations: the bloodline of Desolation Fey. The mutual contract between the devil and the sea demon would not be a hindrance to each other and could be used at the same time. Moreover, Lin Yuan could not only fuse with the Calamity Ghost under normal circumstances. In his mermaid state, Lin Yuan could also fuse with the Calamity Ghost. The Moon Empress was extremely satisfied with the Calamity Ghost. However, even if it was a contract with her as the main and the devil as the auxiliary, the devil's will would still affect the contractor. If Lin Yuan was affected by the Calamity Ghost, would he become very strange? Thinking of this, the Moon Empress was stunned. As soon as Lin Yuan returned to the Return from Faraway Mansion, he saw Wen Yu beside the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus. While feeding the nectar of the Cinnabar Sweet Osmanthus to the coiled Fortune Swallow, she accompanied her contracted source-type life form, the Earth Rush Golden Lotus, to bask in the sun. Upon seeing Lin Yuan return, Wen Yu greeted him with a face full of smiles. Although Wen Yu had been very busy during this period, she was in a good mood. Wen Yu's source paper had been promoted to a diamond/fantasy breed Fae. This allowed Wen Yu to discover a path where she could fight side by side with Lin Yuan. As a functional spirit chi professional, Wen Yu no longer needed to worry about not being able to keep up with Lin Yuan's footsteps. In particular, this path was given to her by Lin Yuan in the beginning. Otherwise, Wen Yu was very clear. Be it her creation master talent or combat ability, they could not meet Lin Yuan's needs. Wen Yu, who was relaxed and had nothing on her mind, liked to smile a lot more than before. When running the Pinru Home clothing brand together with Lu Pinru, Wen Yu was also happy to put more energy into it. Lu Pinru felt Wen Yu's change the most directly. For this reason, Lu Pinru was very happy for Wen Yu. Looking at Wen Yu, who was walking toward him, Lin Yuan was ready to give her the sounding snake of desolation that he had just obtained. Then, he called Ji Feng and asked him to use the water lotus to assist Wen Yu. Then, he would use the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar as a primer to let Wen Yu contract the sounding snake of desolation. Before Lin Yuan could summon the sounding snake out of the spatial ring, Morbius' voice sounded in Lin Yuan's ears. Chapter 1817. Upon hearing Morbius' voice, Lin Yuan immediately revealed a smile. Morbius finally woke up. "Partner, I thought it would only take 8 hours to fuse with the Infinity Gem. But I didn't expect it to take longer than I expected. I slept for 8 or 9 more hours because some changes have occurred in Klein Hub." Upon hearing Morbius' words, Lin Yuan's heart stirred. Morbius sounded delighted, and Lin Yuan could empathize with it due to the contract between him and Morbius. This meant that Klein Hub must have undergone an exceptional transformation. At the thought of this, Lin Yuan could not wait to explore the Spirit Lock spatial zone. It was precisely because of the Klein Hub that he had opened a portal to the swamp world. Lin Yuan clearly remembered that Morbius did not know the name of the emerald gem it had fused with. Now that Morbius called that gem the Endless Gem, it meant that Morbius already knew what that gem was. This Endless Gem was produced in the swamp world, and the Klein Hub was also connected to the swamp world. This Infinity Gem could affect Hub Klein, so it should be of some help to his development in the swamp world. Aside from checking on Klein Hub, which had changed, Lin Yuan wanted to see what the Jasmine Lily's 5 unlocked abilities were. With 5 more skills, the Jasmine Lily's healing abilities would be greatly improved. It made up for Lin Yuan's current lack of treatment. Lin Yuan had never slacked on the nurturing of the spirit-locked phase just because they could only use normal abilities. Under Lin Yuan's nurturing, these spirit-lock phase were all nurtured and evolved in the most optimal way. It was not much different from Lin Yuan's nurturing of Genius and Chimey. Therefore, he had yet to look at the Jasmine Lily's other abilities. However, Lin Yuan believed that the Jasmine Lily's other abilities would give him a pleasant surprise. Apart from anticipation, Lin Yuan was more happy. Lin Yuan said softly to Morbius in his heart, "Morbius, congratulations." Lin Yuan could clearly sense how much Morbius wanted to mend itself and become complete. Right now, Morbius could be considered to have achieved his first small goal. The always serious Morbius said with a rare smile, "Partner, I'm just an item. It was all thanks to your hard work that I was able to complete it. You're the one who made me complete." As Lin Yuan's Fei, Morbius had always been on his wrist. It was very clear that Lin Yuan had gone through a life and death battle, killing Qian Yu and suppressing Luo. Only then did the Freedom Federation's Her Majesty Na arrive. He took out the Endless Gem to protect Luo. Upon hearing Morbius' words, Lin Yuan replied very naturally, "Mobius, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have become so strong right now. So between the two of us, there's no such thing as completely relying on anyone." Lin Yuan had always been different from ordinary people in 3 aspects. The first difference was that he had 2 souls. The second was Lin Yuan's physique, which could filter and purify the spirit qi in the air and inject it into Fey objects. The third was Morbius. Without Morbius, he could only rely on his own physique. With 10 months of development, he might only be a C-rank spirit qi professional and possess a gold Fey, at most. Without Morbius, he would not be able to complete the Class 2 Creation Master Exam and become the Moon Empress disciple in such a short time. However, with just his physique, Lin Yuan might not be able to have that amazing strength in 10 months. But if he was given 10 years, he was still confident that he could enter the Radiance 100 sequence. However, Morbius' existence greatly reduced the time limit for Lin Yuan's growth. It allowed Lin Yuan to have more possibilities in the process of growth. Without Morbius, even if Lin Yuan obtained the Sacred Sword Pursuit and the Grace Queen, he would not be able to fuse the 2 Sacred Source life forms. He would not be able to fuse them into the Sacred Sword Embracing Queen that Lin Yuan had formed a contract with. Lin Yuan and Morbius were the closest partners. They were also complementary existences. Sensing Lin Yuan's intentions, Morbius' joyful emotions became even more excited. This kind of emotion was very unfamiliar to Morbius, but it was very precious. When Lin Yuan returned to the mansion, he was the first to see when you turned around and saw Lin Yuan smiling at her. It was as if when she saw Lin Yuan and walked in front of him, the smile on Lin Yuan's face suddenly widened. This caused Wen Yu to blush for no reason. Just as Wen Yu was guessing why Lin Yuan was so happy, Lin Yuan waved his hand and summoned a four-winged flying snake with snake heads on its head and tail. Wen Yu did not have a bloodline of Desolation Fey, but she had seen Zhongzai's burning sky roar with her own eyes. Wen Yu could feel that this two-headed, four-winged flying snake had the same aura as the burning sky roar. Wen Yu was now only a Class 2 creation master. She could not see anything special about the sounding snake in a short time. Wen Yu did not know the existence of the Golden Wing. Wen Yu thought it was the bloodline of Desolation Fey that Lin Yuan was about to form a contract with. Wen Yu watched the entire collision between Lin Yuan and the Freedom Federation's envoys. Whether it was the general battle or the team battle, Wen Yu had been worried about Lin Yuan. During the battle, Wen Yu found that Lin Yuan did not use the bloodline of Desolation Fey to fight. She subconsciously thought that Lin Yuan had not formed a contract with the bloodline of Desolation Fey. However, Lin Yuan's next words immediately stunned Wen Yu. Wen Yu, this bloodline of Desolation Fey is called the Sounding Snake. As soon as it was born, it reached the peak of the true desolate realm and can form a fragment of the great desolate mystic realm. It belongs to a bloodline of Desolation Fey, with an extremely excellent bloodline. Before you formed a contract with the source paper, you had used the suzerain silver stamen gold luster cassia nectar to cleanse your soul. I will call Ji Feng in a while and ask him to use the water lotus to help you form a contract with this sounding snake. Wen Yu never thought that this sounding snake was prepared by Lin Yuan for her. As a moon attendant, she grew up in the Radiant Moon Palace. Wen Yu's knowledge was even more than some of the young ladies of the top forces. Wen Yu knew very well what a bloodline of Desolation Fey meant to the Radiance Federation, and how precious it was. Even if she was accepted as a disciple by Mystic Moon, Wen Yu never thought that one day she might obtain a bloodline of Desolation Fey to form a contract with. A bloodline of Desolation Fey could no longer be described with value. Wen Yu had vaguely guessed how Lin Yuan had obtained this bloodline of Desolation Fey. It should be because the Radiance Federation had won the bet with the Freedom Federation and the Azure Federation. This bloodline of Desolation Fey itself was part of the bet reward, 7,017K.